1.
Good evening. How you all doing?
Mr. Chair, good evening.
Welcome to the Warrant Committee. Madam Clerk, would you please conduct the roll call attendance?
Sure. We have Dave, Emily, Ohani, JJ, Steve Geister, Kristen is on Zoom, Tom, Lori, Allison, Amanda, Judy, Steve Rhines, and Jay.
Thank you. Welcome to the Warrant Committee. I am glad that we have so many people here with us tonight to conduct the important business of our town. We're doing everything we can to have the entire Warrant Committee here tonight so that we can meet in our entirety. What I will say as we proceed is that this evening's agenda was posted some time ago. We are in the middle of preparing our warrant for town meeting. The warrant that we are preparing for town meeting will contain almost 50 individual articles, each of them addressing something important about our town. The most important thing to our town is the budget and the money. This year we received, due to circumstances, the budget extremely late, and we are under tremendous pressure to get this done. In light of that, we had scheduled this meeting to have some important presentations before us so that we can conduct that business. There's another articles with regards to land swap and with regards to eminent domain that had been previously placed on tonight's agenda by me in an abundance of caution as a safety valve in case some unexpected circumstance occurred following a vote to give us the opportunity to address it. We're required to post our agendas 48 hours prior to our meetings in order to give the public sufficient notice of what subject matter we will be addressing. It is fortuitous that we had the foresight last week to put this matter on the agenda tonight so that we could address it. That being said, I'm going to extend a courtesy to those individuals that we had previously scheduled tonight to make their presentations. I will call them first. So I'm just letting everyone know that it's going to take a bit of time to get that done. Us, the Warrant Committee, having notice of this matter in writing for the first time at 3 o'clock this afternoon. Now, obviously, each of our cell phones, social media, emails, and text machines, I think the term that kids use these days is blew up. So we had a sense that this was coming. But we were not provided anything in writing with regards to this specifically, other than people who did watch the meeting till 3 o'clock this afternoon. So this committee has spent a lot of time today preparing for this. I'd ask the people who are here tonight to bear with us in that regard. And the first matter that we have on our agenda tonight, and I respectfully recognize Mr. Sean O'Rourke and Mr. Mike Zulus, who are here to make their presentation with regards to the School Building Committee appropriation.
And that's article.
Jereen is on his way.
Oh, this one probably.
Hi. And Mr. O'Rourke, I want to mention that we put you first on purpose in recognition of the amount of time that you have put in with regards to your service to the School Building Committee, and that any courtesy that I could extend you, especially with your schedule, I wanted to give that to you.
I appreciate that.
Thank you.
So, on the article in front of us tonight, a formality, Sean O'Rourke, Chair of the School Building Committee, Town Meeting Member, Precinct 8. In regards to the article that we're talking about, which is funding for the School Building Committee, we'll be brief. School Building Committee was formed in February of 2019 at a special town meeting. We allocated $40,000, which we've spent conservatively over the past 4 years, most of which, over $25,000, more than half of our budget, was spent on revising our article that we put forth last year that this committee approved. And those concessions were made based on commentary that we heard from concerned citizens, and we revised the article to use less conservation land, 4 acres less, that this committee approved. With that, we're out of money. We're moving forward. We have 2 roads or pathways that we're going down. The articles for the land swap, if those go forward, we need to hire architects, engineers, and, a number of other professionals to address concerns specifically raised by this committee. If the articles do not go forward, again, we're not over. We need to build a school. That work is going to require a number of professionals. Again, this committee has asked for a number of things. We don't have funding to do that. So to do that, we need appropriations. So whether the land swap goes forward or whether it does not, we still need money to do these things. Specifically, architectural engineering services, mechanical, electrical, plumbing, traffic, stormwater runoff, geotechnical, landscaping, and any other miscellaneous thing that may arise. It seems every time we address everything we think is addressed, somebody wants to bring something different. So we have a slush fund there at the end of it, as we looked at this. For us, there is no presentation tonight, there is no graphics, it's a numerical value, and we ask that you approve it.
Mr., or did you wish to speak, Mr. Zulus?
Well, yeah, I think if the chair will indulge me, just a couple of points, more overall points for the purposes of the committee. I watched the discussion here the other night and found it to be interesting, among other adjectives maybe. It reinforced 3 arguments. The fact that I think there are only 3 arguments.
So,
against-
Mr. Zulus, right now, we're talking about the school building budget committee.
Yeah,
So would you please keep your remarks in line with that discussion? We're going to be discussing the vote with regards to the swap and with regards to eminent domain, of which you discuss are agenda items for later.
right. So I think, Mr. Chair, as I said, I just have a couple of overall remarks. I think they all relate.
Okay.
But if you don't want me to say anything, I won't. But I think they all relate.
I've given my caution,
I
so
appreciate
may you
it. I
please
read it,
proceed.
and if I get out of line, just say it again. So I think there are 3, and I think this relates to funding because we're talking about building a school. And I think there are 3 arguments, really, against building a school. There are people who don't want to build a school. There are people who don't want to build a school in their neighborhood. And there are people who don't want to build a school because they don't want to use any conservation land, even if conservation land is swapped in. And that's it. And those are all legitimate arguments, right, for not building a school.
And so how do those relate to the request from the school building committee for $275,000 has become a line item in the budget proposed to the town and to the warrant committee by the town administrator?
So I think, Mr. Chair, it relates because the committee has heard a lot of noise. And I think if you set aside those 3 arguments, everything else is noise. And there are a lot of arguments that have been made because people think they sound better than those 3 things. To oppose a school building and to oppose the funding, if you will.
Thank you for that.
Well,
Right.
that, yeah, I
Thank you for
mean,
that.
I think it all relates. I think
Yes.
it all relates to the funding, Mr. Chair. So, I mean, I'll just address 2 of them very quickly. Now, this relates to the funding, but eminent domain is one of the articles. So I just want to address some of the noise around that, just very briefly. This eminent domain boogeyman that has arisen. Let's remember that eminent domain resulted from a theoretical legal claim
Generative.
that was, I'm sorry?
Oh, I'm sorry. M&M's?
Oh,
Orange, blue, red, green.
So,
M&M domain.
to get back on track. Homemade hired,
Come on in, let's make them a space.
There's a seat.
I go on.
You got it.
See right here.
That's quick.
You can sit right. No problem. I'll come home.
Homemade hired a lawyer who raised a theoretical legal claim. And this relates to money because we're talking about saving money. But if you don't want me to address it, I will, Mr. Chair. I
think we're
So quickly, please, because it's, look, you got to give it to me. Is that you're talking about eminent domain and arguments for and against. We're talking about this presentation for this budget.
I understand that. And what I'm seeking to tell you, sir, is there are arguments against school building and against the school building funding, right? And I think there's a lot of noise around
So
that.
that point is well taken. And I would ask the warrant committee to not use the school committee's budget as a way of preventing the ability to build the school if you're against the school, and look at that budget as the budget. Is that helpful?
So you're asking the warrant committee not to consider whether they should build a school, only to consider whether they should fund the school building committee?
Well, right now, the question is the school building committee, and what you're saying is that you have concerns, it sounds like, that that issues with regards to that project would cause an individual not to fund at the level that's requested.
Correct.
So I'm asking the warrant committee not to do that and to look at the budget in and of itself.
Okay.
And do you want me to give you 2 examples of what I think the noise is around here?
No.
You don't want to hear that? Okay, all right. Mr. Chair, I'm going to ask the chair, with all due respect, you don't want to hear the 2 examples about the noise?
Can you keep it quick?
I can keep it, it's just,
we're
it's
good at
real
keeping
quick, it's real quick.
Let's do it.
Eminent domain, Homemade hires a lawyer, they present a theoretical legal claim. Our lawyer says, here's a response to that theoretical legal claim, and says that this is the best legal and most cost-effective response. And the response is, the town is gonna take the land from the town for no cash. And that's it. Has it been done before? Of course not. We've never had this situation before. Is it a slippery slope? Of course not, because we're not gonna have this situation again. So, in context, I think, this is just a lot of noise that you hear on that. Second, you've heard a lot of noise very recently about Pope's Pond, and we heard it at the select board last night. And I can address that very briefly if you want me to.
I think we've had enough noise.
What's that?
Yeah, point of order in terms of the germaneness of this discussion.
Well, okay, so, but you'll let me come back later and talk about that.
Maybe.
Maybe, all
I
right.
had a presentation.
I'm sorry?
Okay,
Mr. Chair?
Yeah,
Steve had his hand up first.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just have one simple question. If we recommend that the town funds $275,000, it doesn't have to go to a new school. It can be looking at maybe alternatives like adding on to a school or redoing the classroom, or what. It's not slated for a new school. I know your mission, I understand both you guys have been on a mission for a while here, but I don't think the town's ready to say, we need a new school.
Just be clear, it's not a mission, it's a charge. The school, your commentary the other night, that the town has not voted to build a new school. They have. The formation of the school building committee in 2019 acknowledged publicly, the town voted on it, that we need to build a new school. And they formed our committee. And based on that, we need to build a new school.
so, oh,
I do think, Member Geisler has a good question in terms of understanding the budget and what the chair is trying to do here. There are questions that need to be asked about this budget, about its relevance to that, so we can understand what we're voting on. right? So we need to be clear on what we're voting on. So you're asking us to appropriate not a small sum of $275,000 to a school building committee. I'm struggling honestly to separate from the idea of a school, from building a school. I'm struggling. I don't know if other people of the committee are struggling. Right? I don't know how we consider them wholly separately, right? Because one is necessary for the other. So I think as the town has formed a school building committee, and as the town has allocated this work, we have to presume that we are funding you to do the work that the town has asked you to do, right?
Correct.
In my estimation. So this should be an open and shut case.
You would think. So the town charged us to address the overcrowding by creating a new school. As part of that, the charge also asked us to look at other things, which we did. We scrubbed those things. Us as a committee, 9 of my members, myself and 8 others, scrubbed it all. And it's our decision that we need to build a new school. That was our charge. We presented to you, and we presented in the most financially economical way that we think is the best way to address the overcrowding. We were formed in 2019. The children that were in the grade in 2019 have migrated now up to the middle school. That was unexpected in 2019 because we thought it would be addressed quicker. Now that it's at the middle school, we've created a solution that solves it top down. And as we present those solutions, they were approved last year by this committee,
Correct.
the select board, by the Conservation Commission. We willfully took it back. We reduced the amount of conservation land we use. We pulled it back.
And some of us challenged you.
Hold on, let him
voting
finish.
Let me
Let him
finish.
finish. Let him finish.
We pulled that back. We presented a better solution to you guys. Land swap only, it's a better ratio. Ms. Gagnon, we pulled the land that you asked to back.
Yeah, because it was Article 97.
Correct.
Yes.
That's us listening.
I know, but.
Hold on.
Okay, hold on. At
Well,
this
you're
point,
addressing me, though.
would we please address our remarks to the chair? And then
Sorry.
I would ask the members
No
to
problem.
let him have the
Okay, here's
floor.
what-
Yes?
I apologize.
That's okay. I mean, I see anger. This is a
okay.
very hostile.
This is not hostile.
To the chair.
This is
To the
passion.
chair. To the chair.
Sorry.
It's okay. It's okay.
We listen. We've listened to all the concerned citizens. Up till last year. We pulled this and got delayed by a year. As quickly as Monday night, the comment was raised. We found it to be true. We revised it. We listen and we respond. Now, the budget allocations that we asked for, it seems every time we come in front of any committee or opponents, they think of anything they can think of out of the year. And we need to fight that stuff. We've done it as a committee voluntarily. Put a dollar value on what we've spent voluntarily on this town. It's a fraction of what we're asking for. This committee is done. We've done all our work for 4 years. We presented you the best option, you've rejected it. So now we have to go and hire professional consultants to do this work, to present it to you in an independent manner. So hopefully you can consume it and understand it. And us right now, we're exhausted. That's where this passion's coming from. And with that, I'll turn it over, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, sir. Oh, Henny.
The way you presented this, thank you. Looking, I have my own business. I know what it is, the business you work in. You're working at $300 an hour for 4 years. You're in the $500,000 to give into the town. I absolutely commend you. I recognize it is not chump change. And none of us think in this committee take that lightly. That is, thank you. That's what makes this town great and the sacrifices that people make. The question that you're asking, the part you put in at the end, I think is very important for us to consider as a warrant committee in terms of being fiscally focused. You are saying that you are asking us to fund external consultants because we have not been able to convince with the labor of volunteers on this work.
Correct.
So the question I have is, if we were to approve the work of the school building committee, is this money, in fact, not caveated, asterisk, based on us not approving this. If we were to approve now and say, we support the work of the school building, we support all this, would we save $275,000 out of our budget?
No.
No, because it's two ways that we have to go. The first way is, if the land swap passes and that goes forward, we need to hire architects, we need to hire engineers. The traffic studies that are being requested, we've acknowledged them ad nauseum that we're gonna do all that stuff. So we need the funding for that. If the land swap doesn't go through, we need a backup plan. That backup plan is to hire consultants, study the land that's in the town, look around, figure out how to build a school. Because as I presented it multiple times, we've scrubbed every inch of this town for land. This land that we presented is the best option. Whether it's not perfect, it's not great. We're not happy taking conservation land. It took us 3 years, two and a half, to come to that decision. Like we weren't formed in 2019 and came in 2019 and said, we're taking conservation land, guys, hand it over. No, we studied everything, guys. We did all this work. And then after we identified it and got all the approvals last year from this committee, 9 to 5, April 27th, Article 4 voted on, we pulled it back voluntarily to do additional work to address some of the concerns. Voluntarily.
Thank you. Thank you for that. When you talk about the budget, that's what the presentation is. We're volunteers too. We're volunteers too. So when you say, can you think about our time? Yes. As far as, and then the $275,000 for your budget, at the beginning of your presentation, you said, I'm not going to have a presentation, I'm not going to have a breakdown, this is what we need. So what we're getting, as far as because we're looking at spreadsheets and we're looking at line items and all that, is right now, we would have to go on faith, on hard work. It is my sense that while there's been some disagreement, we do see good faith. We do see hard work. Can you give us some kind of breakdown? Like some kind of breakdown about where it goes?
And I apologize, it's my first time ever asking for a budget from the Warrant Committee. Again, we had $40,000 4 years ago.
Yep.
We rode that out as best we can. We are out of money.
Yep.
All right. Rough numbers, when I look at them, based on the BSC work that we did, which was resurveying the property that was there, again, to satisfy opponents that raised concerns, was $25,000. So that was kind of a budget number that I ran with for different things. So when we look at that, roughly, about $150,000 I allocated for architectural engineering services. $25,000 for a traffic study, and again, these are all going to be in chunks of $25,000 for identified things. Traffic studies, $25,000 for stormwater, $25,000 for geotechnical services, $25,000 for landscaping, and as I mentioned, $25,000 as essentially call it a slush fund, call it contingency, whatever may arise in the next year that anybody can theorize to put against this project.
Okay.
May I ask just for a recap of those numbers?
Yes.
Please, if I missed one.
150,000 architectural MEP services. 25,000 traffic. You don't mind if I address it?
Please.
No, that's what
Okay.
I missed.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. O'Rourke.
Yep.
What was after traffic?
No problem. Stormwater runoff,
Thank you.
geotechnical, landscaping, and then contingency.
Thank you.
Jay?
So when you spend that, that's if the land swap is approved, and if you spend that, where will we be? Will we be ready to break ground? What?
No,
Okay,
Typically, architectural engineering services, including OPM, there's OPM included with that architectural engineering services, is typically about, if you look at MSBA's numbers, is typically 15% of the overall construction budget. So when we've mentioned,
I don't mean money-wise. Sorry, go on.
say it again.
Yeah, I just mean like, you spend the 250 and
Well,
then,
what I'm saying is that what we're asking for is essentially a fraction of the overall project for designing fees.
Okay.
So what our goal for that is, if everything went forward, to be able to develop conceptual design plans that we can put a better price to, because the prices I quote here are theoretical. We're using rough numbers that we have there. And obviously, people will try to use it against us sometime in the future, but our goal is to revise that as best we can to come to a distinct, particular number, so we can present it to you next May.
Amanda had her hand up first.
So, just to confirm, regardless of which direction this goes, so town approves land swap, move forward, you need that money for all of the surveying, all of the issues that people have brought up. Land swap does not go approved, we still need a school, this is the money that we need to hire other people to explore other options and know what our options are.
You're correct.
That was kind of the question I had. But do you know how much you would put towards, like, we give this money, we have a definite backup plan? Like, to show to the town? Like, if we're giving,
Be specific on
like,
yours.
like if the land swap doesn't go through and we have a plan in place to present the town with an option for a school, let's say it's even, whatever it is, pre-K, K, like, we have a second plan in place to build a school at some sort of capacity with
do
this
not.
money. Okay, so we're not putting money towards an option two. This is only one. It's a guile or nothing. In this amount. Is it my?
Okay,
No.
I think Mr. O'Rourke would like to address that and give his answer.
Okay.
As I said, there is the option that if the land swap goes through, we'll hire architects and engineers to develop that land, to develop for a new upper middle school. If it does not go through, I think where your point was, we have to hire consultants and other planners to scrub the town, to find land, and basically replicate all the work that we've done for the past 4 years.
Okay. That's what I wanted.
Does anyone have any questions based upon those?
With respect to the.
Mr. Ryan's, go right ahead.
With respect to the land swap or to his budget request?
Let's try to keep it to the budget, but I would caution, we're trying to keep this to the budget, but I'd like to give latitude to members if they have a question, that the members would ask a question.
Yeah. I think a comment and then maybe a question.
Like I
Comment will
said,
be brief. I do think there is some confusion on the interpretation of the land swap, and that folks may have misinterpreted that this is not a yes/no on building a school, but yes/no on the land swap. I think that's really important for people at home to understand that probably the majority of us, I would speak for myself, I'm in support of a new school. We need a new school, right? So it's very important to understand the interpretation is about the land swap. That's what we were being asked to jump on that. And I thank you for your summary of your numbers. They're just doing rough math at 15% of that. That's about an $85 million school to $100 million based on MSBA, which, right, so 15% in design fees. So that would have to be done twice, essentially. If it's not approved, you got to scrub. There's costs for that, right, Sean? So I just want to make sure. So there would be additional cost that would have to be incurred in time lost in developing.
The problem, the timeline that ties in there, if the land swap does not go through and we press the button and reset all the work that's done, we're delayed 4 to 5 years, my guess.
I'm sorry, how many years?
4 to 5 years, my guess, safe. It took us 4 years to get to where we are right now.
So not like 6 months or something?
yeah,
Sorry.
right, let him finish.
4 to 5 years to get back to where we are now with some conceptual option. We're talking rough numbers, $75 to $100 million. Again, big round numbers. What's the escalation cost of that over 4 to 5 years? What is that overall value to that, to delay this project that we all know has to happen? All the deliberation that I did last year, all the meetings, all the gauntlet that I ran through, not one person said we didn't need a school. I was surprised the other night when I heard it multiple times at this table. So, in response to Mr. Rhines, by delaying this project, it is going to cost more. I have said that multiple times, and our job to do, and it's going to cost much more on multiple fronts. Escalation is one of them. Land acquisition. We're at the people who are on the sidewalk, Mr. O'Connor and Lori. The person who opposes this project on the Conservation Commission threw out a number approximately for good land, like 7 acres, is $15 million today. Put escalation costs on that. That's his number, not mine. So now wrap all this up together, and we're talking fiscally responsible. We're trying to acquire land right now, much smaller amount of conservation land than what we had last year that got approved. 6 acres last year, 2.8 this year. 6.8 last year, 2.8 this year, 4 acres less. And we're doing that for the town, so we're not expending extra money to acquire. On the acquisition portion too, the town does not have money in a bank that we can run out and buy property. When it came up with Fontbonne, we reacted. We pivoted off this project, chased it down, and explored it. And it's not a thing that we can do quickly. So the idea of just being able to buy land when people throw it out there does not exist.
But we're clearly not going to buy that land with the $275,000, which is the,
If someone's selling, I'll happily. If someone wants to sell it, I'll happily use that money.
right,
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, one point of clarity.
yes.
Member Rhines, that's a very important question. I think the point, if I'm not mistaken, you couldn't possibly have the same sums for if approved and not approved.
Correct.
In fact, what you're doing is giving us the base. There must be a higher sum that you would need if we do not approve. Those numbers cannot be the same based on Member Rhines' question.
If you could repeat your question again, I apologize.
Oh, sure. So the 275,000, I was just doing rough math, right? So based on a $100 million school, right? So breaking down 15% design fee, contributes MEP, arch, et cetera. That breaks down to about 85 million. What I'm suggesting is that is to do a study based on Guile, right? So if that doesn't go, there's additional costs for you to scope, find new land. Then you got to skate through all the other gates again through the entire town process. That feeds into that 4 or 5 year delay. Am I
It
right?
does. I mean, the 275 that's there, I mean, this is my opinion, and people cannot, we're in a crisis with the schools, and we need to address it quickly. You know, for us as a committee, like I keep saying, we're out of money and we're exhausted. We've done everything we can. We presented our best option, and if it doesn't pass, we need to hire other people to do this work, to represent to everybody independently. If they don't believe our committee of the work that we've done, that's the best option. To hire somebody else to present it independently and tell you what that option is.
Are there any further, Amanda?
Just because it seems that we should ask. The numbers, the ballpark numbers that you're giving, I'm assume are based on other studies you've seen, other work that you've done. If like looking at traffic studies from other things, is that where those numbers are coming from, just to
So
confirm?
the $25,000, the major component of it are the architectural engineering services. If we get the land, there's a lot of work that needs to get done to figure out what the land is. There'll be multiple iterations. It's not like we're just going to run with the first option. We need to have neighborhood input to this project. We've offered it multiple times, and that's part of our plan. And that's where the component of that is. The $25,000 chunks that I put there are based upon the expenditures that we had recently with BSC Engineering.
Okay,
So we use that as our baseline.
thank you.
Are there any further questions? Gentlemen, thank you for your time, and thank you for your service to our town.
May I ask, Mr. Chair, what the schedule is in terms if we're going to address the other articles?
Right, as I said in my opening remarks, is that we are going to extend to the previously scheduled people who had been on our agenda prior to the select board vote last night, the results of which I received at 3 o'clock this afternoon and disseminated to the committee following that. We're going to extend to those people the time that the courtesy of the time that they had committed to and put into their schedules beginning last week, and we would get to our discussion. Is my intent that when we address that, I will present that, and we will conduct our discussion amongst the warrant committee. So if you're looking for a time, I don't know. This last one went until like almost 11 o'clock. I hope that the presenters that we have on deck don't push us out that far. That's the best I can do.
And we're not going to be expected to speak.
I do not expect to call you. I don't, whether others on the committee think that that is helpful. Like I said, is that what we received from the select board was essentially what we voted on. In fact, I noticed a lot of my work in what the select board did last night, because we spent a lot of time drafting. So I would imagine that most of the members of our warrant committee don't need red lines to see what the changes are, because we got into that. So that's my expectation, that I would present the new articles that they have, to the extent that they are new or not. I don't know, let the committee decide, and then that's how we will proceed. If there's nothing further, we're going to move on to our next agenda item.
Are we not?
Oh, okay.
Discussion.
This is what our article, in order to be able to move through, okay? What I had done is, with regards to these, I believe, I put down presentation,
Okay.
especially because this involves money. And we haven't really begun our discussion of the budget, okay? And so, because we have not begun our discussion of the actual budget, though we probably would have liked to have at this meeting, what I've asked for is, I put down presentation, okay? And then as we move into our discussions of the budget, then we will move on to more formal discussion and a vote. So you'll notice on our agenda, it's the same with like the bylaw review committee. We would get their presentation, okay?
Thank you.
Is there something that you would like to bring now?
No, I thought you were asking for a motion, but you're not, so.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair, so we will have our discussion when we vote in future.
In the future, when we vote the budget,
okay.
because each of these
Yep, I got it.
are articles in the warrant, okay? So we'll have, at some point, we'll have an update with regards to the budget, and we'll be getting to looking at the budget and looking at the big numbers and what we have to do. But for right now, what we're trying to do is to ascertain what is the request, get a sense of what does it relate to, and at the beginning to think about the priorities. Okay, moving on. Let's see, the next matter is the bylaw review committee term extension and appropriation matter. It's Mr. Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. Peter Mullen, Chairman of the Bylaw Review Committee. We submitted an article for this year's annual town meeting that seeks to extend the term of our committee for 2 more years and seeks an appropriation. And I don't know if you received it, but I sent you an application for an appropriation of $5,730. maybe I should just give a little bit of history about the committee. We were created by vote of step back. The State Department of Revenue has a local services division, and they did a study on the town back in, I think, 13 or 14. And one of the things they noted was how out of date our bylaws were. In 2015, the Town Government Study Committee recommended the appointment of a committee to review the bylaws. That was adopted in 15, but the committee wasn't actually staffed until November of 2016. And when we started reviewing the bylaws, the town clerk came to us and told us that she had identified a company by the name of General Code, which maintains an electronic database of local government bylaws. She had a proposal from them. We met with them, I think twice, and the town engaged General Code to do a review of our bylaws, not to change the substance, but just take what we had and put them into their format. They have a very counterintuitive format for how they present bylaws. They skip a lot of numbers. I think it was early 2019, they gave us a draft of what they had done with our existing bylaws, and they asked us to go through them, see if there were things we wanted to change or comment on. We started that process in 2019. We've been delayed because of the pandemic and also because of some family circumstances that I had. And so we've had a couple of extensions. This past fall, in the fall of 2022, we had focused on the zoning bylaw as one of the bylaws, the bylaw that's the biggest of our bylaws and the most frequently used, I believe, of our bylaws. We've gone through what General Code had given us. We actually went through it 3 times. We did various, introduced headings, did some reorganization, but weren't attempting to make any kind of substantive change in those bylaws, just to reorganize them a little bit so they'd be more usable to people. In the fall of 2022, we went before the planning board to get their support, and the planning board instead voted to endorse a proposal by the town clerk and the building commissioner to start the general code process over again. There was some disagreement, I think, about what the proper starting point was. On our town website, I believe the general bylaws are only up to 2007, and the zoning bylaw is only up to 2009. I believe that the planning board had an unofficial copy of the bylaws, which I think is up as far as 2017. They wanted to use a different starting point with the general code, and I believe that's what's going to be presented to you today in connection with the town clerk's revisions. The mission that was given to the bylaw review committee was to review the bylaws for substance and to recommend additions, deletions, changes, and the organization. Whichever version of general codes bylaws that we use, that remains a viable mission for us. We're focusing right now on the general bylaws, and we think we need the 2 years, and that we'll be able to complete the project in the 2 years. One of the things that has been very difficult for us is we've never had an appropriation, so we don't have any administrative support. And when you have various people commenting on a draft document, you need someone who's maintaining version copy and who's keeping track of, you know, what comments have been approved, what haven't, you know, what various people have said. We think we need administrative support to do that. I talked with the assistant town administrator for personnel. She tells me that we pay a little bit less than $30 an hour right now for such services. That application for appropriation that I submitted, that's our best estimate, our rough estimate as to how much time we would need. And we think that if we can get that appropriation, that we should be able to complete this project in the 2-year period that we're asking for. So with that, I'd take any questions.
Tom, you're on that committee, right? Do you have any questions that you think might be helpful to our understanding as, you know, lay people, if you will?
You know, I would tell the committee for the record that I've just recently been appointed to the committee by the moderator. There was a vacant position, and in that, not urgency, but in a great effort to complete this project, I volunteered to join. It's a very strong committee, I believe, but in my cursory review, and I'm just collecting the materials in lockstep with this now, the Warrant Committee. But you know, I think it's an editing project. It's a massive part of this, and I've worked with companies similar to General Code, and these companies do a great job, but things tend to jam together. Grammar, punctuation are very important. Like I said, it's a very it's a committee made up of some people I respect in the legal field very much. So that's really all I can have to offer. But you know, it is a very time-intensive project. And in my review, in my initial meetings with the bylaw committee, I was asking about, you know, help in terms of amassing the document, redlining, commenting, approvals, and I would say that I did vote. I will abstain in this vote, obviously, but I did vote in favor of this appropriation as a member of the bylaw committee, and you know, approved obviously the article as written to submit to the select board and eventually not you. So.
Thank you.
All I have to add, but Mr. Mullen is by far the expert on our bylaws in the town.
Great. Are there any further questions? Emily?
I have a question. Just hearing about multiple drafts and, you know, kind of merging things together. I work on projects where that's difficult and was made more difficult during the pandemic. And this might be a really silly question, but I know the town uses like Outlook and Microsoft products for things like email. My work does as well. There's also a tool, SharePoint, through Microsoft, where you have one like online version that you can have multiple editors on. And I'm just wondering if that's something that should be explored instead of having a person deal with that. You can have like an online version of a document with multiple editors, so you only have one version. So I don't know if that's something that's an option, but I know just for me professionally, it has been like, I mean, it's not like when you're saving like multiple versions on Microsoft Word and someone saves one version, but there's an update made in another. So again, it might be a silly question if it's not something available, but that solved a lot of problems for me.
I just don't know. I'm not familiar with SharePoint, but
Peter, I think
go ahead.
So Emily, that's a good point. I use SharePoint. Okay. And in my conversation, in talking about this appropriation and the help, now this was my take on SharePoint. And I think SharePoint works well. SharePoint's just an interface, I think. And as Emily explained it, but in documents of this size, we're talking hundreds and hundreds of pages, when multiple people are accessing the document at once, making changes, it's been my experience that we've had problems with saving and updating on the versions. Now that could be a problem with the software, whatever I was using, whatever, but based upon bad professional experience, I wouldn't recommend SharePoint for this project. So that, like I said, that's just from my, Peter not as familiar, but from my point, I would be nervous given the amount of users trying to work SharePoint. But somebody might have a different opinion and experience with that. So.
Yeah, I definitely have seen, like, there are things I love on SharePoint for like Word and Excel, and then there are things that are definitely that don't work as well. One of the things I found it most useful for is having multiple editors for different document sizes. But yeah, I was just curious if it was an option that could be explored.
Right. If I may, just a comment. I do a lot of contracts. I would recommend using something. You can do compared documents, right? You can line them up side there. I'm happy to take it offline and help you to coach them as well. I would recommend also using something as simple as Microsoft Word to pump it in there, and then you can track edits and changes by in a balloon in the margin. You see who's doing it. I would not recommend a legal contract wide open and make people making edits, because it's, you know, at least in that format, you can track it. You can see who deletes something, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
We can take it offline, and I'm happy to help.
If I may, I believe most of the people in the room have absolutely no idea what you're talking about.
It's great technology. I think it just hasn't, from my perspective, it hasn't been perfected.
Thank you.
No, I'm not part of the conversation, but it could infringe upon open meeting law because the members are all not allowed to communicate with one another. So they would be sharing their comments outside of a public.
So can I submit my suggestions in writing to the committee with, you know, a PowerPoint, kind of with images, walking him through it? Is that acceptable?
I tell you what, I don't know. We can get an answer to that. We can get an answer to that.
Okay.
Any appropriation you approve, we can't spend any of it until at least July 1 of this year. And there'd be some time there to figure out what is the best software we could use. We'd still need an administrative person that could manage that.
Jay?
Hi. So when your committee was created in 2015, it said, work on the bylaws except for, and I named a few things, the big one being the zoning bylaws.
Yes.
I could list them all if people are bored. And then 2 years later, town meeting said, okay, also look at the zoning bylaw. And I don't, I certainly can't remember what people were thinking, but at that time we realized the bylaws aren't current. It's very important to get current zoning bylaws. And I've looked at the updated zoning bylaws. I think they did a great job. I think it was a Herculean task, and I'm amazed at what they did. So we've got current zoning bylaws, so that's great. Now, so I think your committee now is going to do what you originally were supposed to do, which was suggest additions, deletions, changes in organization, correct?
With regard to the general bylaws, I don't think we're going to get into the substance of the zoning bylaws.
Well, that's what I was going for. Should we, when and if we re-up your committee, should we take the zoning bylaw out of there? And the reason I'm saying that is it's great that we now are going to have a current zoning bylaw on the website. That's great. Sorry, that sounded sarcastic. It's not sarcastic. It really is great. But there is a elected board in town, the planning board, and the zoning bylaw is their baby. And I'm a little concerned with having somebody else who's tasked with making changes to the zoning bylaw that is not the planning board. Maybe I'm a worrier.
I've made the representation to the select board, and I'd make it to the warrant committee that our focus will be on the general bylaws and not the substance of the zoning bylaw. We have, our suggested changes in terms of new headings, reorganization a little bit. We presented that to the town planner. I don't know whether the planning board wants to incorporate any of that or not. I believe they're going to be asking for an appropriation to hire some kind of a expert and to get some substantive input with regard to our zoning bylaw. We essentially see them as being the experts with regard to the zoning bylaw.
I don't know if you can speak for your committee, but would you object if the renewal said, we're renewing them for another 10 years, 2 years, sorry, 2 years. But, the zoning bylaw is no longer under their purview. Would you object to that, or can you say one way or the other?
I'd urge you not to do that for the simple reason that the town has right now one contract with General Code. It covers all the bylaws. If something comes up down the road, maybe we need to, we find some numbering problem or some problem that you need to make some change in the zoning bylaw, we'd recommend that. Anything that we recommend is got to ultimately go to town meeting.
Would it go to the planning board?
If it's a change in the zoning bylaw, it requires a public hearing before the planning board.
Okay.
So that we can't mess around with the zoning bylaw without the planning board's involvement.
Thank you.
Steve?
Yeah, just a quick question. Is this just a clerical cleanup of the documents that exist, or are you actually changing policy potentially?
I think we would be ultimately proposing changing policy. Any changes would have to be approved by the town meeting. Right now, our bylaws prohibit anyone from riding a horse in the cemetery. They also prohibit people from throwing coal ash in the streets. I think there's a lot of things in there that we're going to be recommending getting rid of.
Right.
Thank you.
Sorry, I actually have a question about one of those examples, because I've driven around town and seen people riding horses. I would suppose as in leisure, but would we want people to be allowed to do that in the cemetery? Because that could damage. I know it sounds silly, but I actually think that that's a reasonable rule, and that I don't know. I actually would question if it should be removed. Just seeing.
We're not debating that.
I don't.
The town meeting, we could talk about that at length.
Yeah.
Our plan, we would consult with the trustees of the cemetery about that.
Okay. I guess I would just say to be very careful, because there could be things that sound out of date that are actually still reasonable.
And we have some great people working on it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great job.
Thank you.
Let's see. I'm going to jump around a little bit. I call it, we want to prioritize getting the civilians out of here first. And Mr. Wells, I think we're going to call you one of those tonight.
You're gonna call me a civilian? Is Mr. Milano back?
There you go.
So I may defer since he got called out of him, so I'll wait till he comes back.
All right.
But thank you for that.
Yeah, but then okay.
Civilian, God,
Right,
someday
is that
that will
you saw-
happen in my life.
Yeah. Okay. We just did bylaw. Okay. Ms. Gallman? Or do you need Nick?
I
We go text him and see what he let.
would love to have him here, but I do not need him to present.
Yeah, because why don't we,
I was expecting Tim.
because we can do,
He's on Zoom.
we can do
Tim's on Zoom.
the
Yeah,
bylaws.
he's up. Oh, sorry, Tim. Nick's up. Oh,
How about, are we able to do the discussion with, yeah.
Maybe he's not. I think he was here. He's raising his hand. Shall I promote him to a panelist?
Yes, please.
Hi, folks. Thanks for having me.
Right.
Okay, so, Susan, he's on Zoom. Oh, great. Hi, Jeff. So.
Hi, everybody.
the purpose of
Can everybody hear me?
being here Is, I submitted 2 articles to the select board, both being for recodification of the town's bylaws, both the general and the zoning. back in 2017. I'll eat my words. I said I'd be there in 2018 with new bylaws, and it didn't happen. And I apologize for that. But here we are, it's 2023, and the bylaws have been codified. And our approach has been to take exactly word for word what our bylaws are. There were several talkabouts of, updating them, while that very confusing for everybody. So to take it in smaller bits of what we have now, what town meeting has already voted to approve as they are, will go out to town meeting to accept the bylaws as they are written. Now, that comes with a caveat that there may have been typos, and those typos came from when the article was originally approved at town meeting, that it was never caught. So those typos will still be in there. So when we're presenting it to town meeting and to you folks, we're not gonna be looking at those. We know that there are some. But otherwise, we would have like maybe 1,500 changes of, oh, we spelt that wrong. It would become very confusing to people. The bylaw review committee will take each of those items and go through on the general bylaw side and adopt them and make them grammatically correct. And, if there are substantial changes, they would then present those to town meeting again and have those updated. I think that's all I have to say on the matter. I'm sure there's questions.
Jay?
Yes.
Hi. Until a few months ago, listening to you at a meeting, I had never heard the word recodify. And I'm still not 100% sure what it means. So
Okay, so basically.
talk to us from the beginning.
Okay, so basically, the company that we hired is called General Code. They have about 400 cities, towns throughout the whole US that they have codified their records. So basically what codifying is it's taking your bylaws and putting them into some sort of numerical alphabetical system that makes it easier for people to view. So a great benefit of General Code is, once our system is live, you could type in town clerk. And anything that has to do in our bylaws that the town clerk is mentioned, that would pull up. So it would help everybody find what they're looking for instead of having to peruse, oh, that might be under there, oh, it might be under that. So it makes it in a much more logical, systematic approach for people to access the records. Did that answer your question?
It did, thank you.
Tim's raising his hand.
One rec-
Just a comment, Suzanne, it would also save the town a lot of time for folks to receive phone calls and have to go search that for them as well, correct? So the ROI for the
Tremendous
town is,
amount.
the ROI for the town is probably, I'm assuming, pretty
Right.
big, yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Tim is raising
Oh,
his hand.
please, we'd recognize Tim.
Hi, can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you for having me. Tim Zerwinski, Director of Planning and Community Development. I raised my hand before the questioner said that he was satisfied with the answer. So maybe I should lower it. But I just wanted to just supplement some of Ms. Galvin's comments with, as we have updated, and I'm speaking of the zoning bylaws specifically, but I think it can apply to the general bylaws as well. When we amend zoning by adding a new special permit process or a new planned unit development, the way in which it gets squeezed into the existing zoning bylaw has some sense and order to it, but in a lot of ways, you just sort of tack these things onto the end of a section where it kind of makes sense. And so what the recodification, does is puts like things together in a way that they're maybe not together already. And just as a sort of really concrete example of what the recodification is going to look like is, We currently have the zoning bylaw, it's chapter 10, and then a number of sections, section 1, 2, 3, and all of the sort of subheadings, within that. The new bylaw is going to be Title 275, and then all of the subsections, underneath that. And so what you're going to see is, the height regulations are going to be 275.1 dot something or other. I don't have it at my fingertips, but that's really what recodification is, taking, the word for word verbatim material and ordering it, labeling it in a very coherent, understandable index. So thank you.
Thank you, sir. Based upon the presentations, are there any more questions? Jay?
Yes. So I'm still sort of wrapping my head around what we're being asked to do. So for example, if we had the bylaws
Pull up
and
the article.
if we had the bylaws and town meeting amended it, like simple, let's say it's up to date, town meeting amends it, you don't come back to town meeting and say, you like this amendment, right? Or even if town meeting amended it 10 or 20 times, you don't come back.
So town meeting is going to approve in its entirety. So before, let's take, because zoning has a lot more.
Okay.
The planning board would come with a zoning article, and you'd accept that one article. What we're asking you to do is, every article that the town has ever had with regard to zoning or general bylaw, that the town now will accept that as what our starting point is, basically.
That makes me very nervous. I'd rather you didn't ask us, because we had the bylaws, we amended them again, we amended them again. So they exist, even though, as of 6 months ago, they weren't in one document.
Right.
So I would just want the town clerk or someone to put their seal of approval and say, we had the starting point, we had these 25 amendments, it's the document. I get a little nervous when you ask 270 of my best friends to.
I can see your point, and I think it's very valid. However, we're required to do so. So
Okay.
if it was as simple as that, I could just say, good to go,
Okay.
I would not be sitting here. I still would have it all displayed and everything, but it is the process in which we are required, so town meeting would have to adopt now this as our formal system, and then going forward. So that is the reason why.
So are you asking us to just okay the numbering system, or are you, like, all of us take our responsibility very seriously? Are we going to go through, somebody have them printed out? I don't know. I print them out, they're thick. Are we, how much time should I spend going through these amended bylaws before I can feel comfortable saying yes?
So there's a process, and I have put it on the website, that general code goes through. So they have a double key, I was never familiar with that terminology, but they have a double key process.
Yeah.
And then from there, that's how they check to make sure that they have it. They got our documents and did this double key process. Then they upload it into their software system that does the numbering.
Okay.
I am checking to make sure all of our bylaws are in the context. They have 100% accuracy rate so far. So I trust general code, and there's 181 cities and towns in Massachusetts alone, so that's 50% of the cities and towns in Massachusetts that use general code. I trust their process. They're very thorough.
Okay.
And so that's my standpoint. If somebody chooses and wants to go through it, they're more than welcome to, and bring it to my attention if they find something. But
and is it okay if I keep speaking?
Yes, please, thank you.
So when I look at what is proposed we vote on, it seems to me like Article 12, we're not voting on the bylaws, we're voting to say, yes, it's okay you renumber it, yes, it's okay you give a chapter title to it. I'm perfectly happy to vote, yes, it's okay you renumber it. So, sorry, maybe I should read before I speak.
right, so this is standard language that general code has provided to us, that they use when a town or city is adopting this method. So it's pretty much standard. Town council has looked at it.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Thanks a lot.
Based on that, does anyone have any other questions?
Mr. Chair, could I add some additional context there?
Yes.
Thank you. I just happen to have General Code's methodology in front of me because I think it's important to be very clear how they got to the product that they produced for us. When Ms. Galvin says, they have a double key process, key just means typing. So what we do is we provide them with a true copy of our zoning, which is updated and accurate as to 2009, plus a true copy of every zoning amendment that town meeting has passed since then, up until the most recent town meeting where a zoning amendment was passed. They have two individual word processors type those bylaws into a word processing software, which is, you can't pay these people enough to do that kind of work. But there are two separate individuals that do that. They then compare each of those drafts to each other to find any inconsistencies, and then those inconsistencies are corrected based on a comparison to the original true copy document that we provided to them. And so the check happens as the word processing is kind of going along. And so, when we say that, we trust General Code, we trust them because they engage in a really rigorous process to make sure that the transcription is accurate in the first place. And to get to sort of the original part of the question of, can we just, say, town clerk, go ahead. I think it'd be great. I think Sue Galvin is the best of the best. But she's right that we are required to go to town meeting to amend the zoning. And, the reason for that is, there are no substantive changes to the language or the meaning of the zoning. It is a straight word for word verbatim transcription, but there are edits. Because we're taking, again, Chapter 10, Section 3, and we're turning it into Title 275, Section X. The types of changes that we're making are very limited in terms of headings, in terms of numbering, in terms of indentation, but they're numerous. There are, effectively hundreds of ministerial changes to the zoning. And so, that counts as an amendment, for better or for worse. And so, what I would say is, if you're interested in some light bedtime reading, absolutely read the zoning from top to bottom. I don't do it for fun. I do it for a living, but I've done it. But I think what's really important for the Warrant Committee, if you're so inclined, and for town meeting members that are concerned about this, is the draft that General Code produced doing what they said it was going to do? That means making sure that the internal references are consistent. So for instance, when we say, in the height regulations, refer to, Section 3, subsection B, that's going to change to whatever is internally consistent with the new numbering system. And so those are the types of changes that we need to sort of be on the lookout for. The other thing is General Code wanted to produce, narrative section headings for each section, which exists in some cases in our current zoning, doesn't exist in others. It's really helpful to understand what a section is about when it says, this is what the section is about. So they've created some new section headings. That's probably the most, I would say, I hesitate to even call it substantive, but it is the most new addition to this draft of zoning. So that's another thing that you may want to look at and say, is this accurately reflecting what's in the zoning? Does this help our understanding of what it is? But it's all, if we were making one of these changes, I would say, maybe the clerk could do it, but in aggregate, there are hundreds of these changes throughout. So not changing the substantive meaning of the zoning, but changing the way it's read and interpreted to the extent that the town meeting is going to need to take a vote.
Thanks, Tim.
Based on that, does anyone else have any questions? There's no budget item associated with this article, right?
No, so In 2017, it was budgeted for, and as a matter of fact, the planning board
Yep.
paid for both.
So because this was a non-budget item, it is on our agenda for discussion and vote. Would we like to have a discussion? There not being a clamorous call for a discussion. Madam Secretary, can you call up the article, please? And so I think that the language that we would vote on would be a recommendation, be recommended that the town approve. I think in this particular case, I don't have it up, would be the language. Can you read it, Jay? What, Jay, would you do me a favor? All right, yeah, all right. Thank you. I'm going to read this, and then it'll come up so that people in the ether. So our recommendation, if you vote yes, would be to recommend to the town that they renumber and recaption the general bylaws of the town by assigning a chapter number to each of the general bylaws, let's say. B, renumbering each section of each bylaw accordingly. C, inserting chapter, article, and section titles. And D, updating internal references to reflect, et cetera, et cetera. We have all read this. We have all reviewed this on our own time. If there's not a request for me to read it in whole, I will dispense from a formal reading of the proposal. Is there a motion? Jay?
I move that we say, we recommend the town and then the verbiage about.
Second.
We're all here, right? We don't have any members?
No, we do. Kristen's on.
Okay. Then if we have a Zoom member, we'll need to please conduct a roll call vote. Madam Secretary, would you please conduct a roll call vote?
Oh. O'Henny.
Yes.
JJ.
Yes.
Stephen Rhines.
Yes.
Kristen.
Yes.
Tom.
I don't know, abundance of caution, I'm going to abstain.
That's a good idea, thanks.
Steve Geister.
Yes.
Lori.
Yes.
Allison.
Yes.
Jareen.
Yes.
Amanda.
Yes.
Judy.
Yes.
Jay.
Yes.
I am a yes, and I am assuming you abstain.
I abstain, yes, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Great job.
Thank you.
There- I'm sorry, there is a follow-up. That was the general bylaws. Do you want to do the zoning while we're here?
Right, is the presentation the same?
It's exactly the same.
It's exactly the same. Okay, next, moving on. Can you do me a favor? Can you pull up that article? Oh, that's called a mouse.
It should be just scroll down.
13?
That's why it gets the big bucks.
Yeah, all right. Next, with regards to Article 13. That the recommendation be that the warrant committee recommend to the town approval of Article 13 in the warrant, an article to see if the town will vote to renumber and recaption the zoning bylaws of the town by assigning, et cetera, et cetera. We have all read this. We've all been through it. If there is not an objection, I will not read formally the entire recommendation. Would we wish to have discussion on this? Hearing no call for discussion, is there a motion on the floor from the committee? Is there a motion?
I'm going to recommend the passage of this article.
JJ recommends.
Second.
It's seconded. May we please have a vote?
Right. O'Henny.
Yes.
JJ.
Yes.
Steve Rhines.
Yes.
Kristen.
Yes.
Tom.
Abstain.
Steve Geister.
Yes.
Lori.
Yes.
Allison.
Yes.
Jareen.
Yes.
Amanda.
Yes.
Judy.
Yes.
Jay.
Yes.
I'm a yes. I'll put you down for abstaining, Dave.
Thank you. Okay.
Thanks, everybody. Good luck
Thank you.
tonight.
For the record, both articles carried by vote of the warrant committee, with a warrant committee recommendation to the town that they vote to approve both articles. Cooking with gas. Mr. Wells, ready?
That's all right. Did I say that today to you?
You did.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, sir.
Anyone who doesn't know me, my name is Richard Wells, and I'm a member of the Select Board. And with me is our Town Administrator, Mr. Milano. I am also Chair of the Capital Improvement Committee. It's funny, I've been coming in this room as I sit here and I listen when you refer to me as a civilian. I've been coming before warrant committees now for over 30 years. And even though my life is much different, the past 6 years in the role that I'm in now, for all of us, and you made the remark about taking things seriously, volunteering for this community is hard. If you're going to take a position on any committee in any role, you have to really roll up your sleeves, as you know in this room. I was going to say to you when I first walked in tonight, 'cause as soon as you walk in tonight, it's palpable, you can feel it. It's like being at the SJC. You know, you're not in district court, from my line, you're not in district court anymore, you're in the, and for all of us in every single role in this community, whether you're in your first year here or whether you've been, I can't believe I'm saying this, around for decades like myself, for all of us, what we're trying to do is have a positive impact on our homes. This is where we live. The commonality amongst us is 0 to 186. We may not always agree, but in the end, the place that we go home at night and lay our heads down is our homes. And whether you're a first year moving here or you've lived here for 70 years or and you're living out your retirement age, those are the things that make this community so special. And so, at least for me, because I'm sitting here and I said, geez, this might be my last time ever being here. Maybe I will be a civilian. I just want to say thank you to all of you for your service. And I want to thank our committee who worked very hard. The Capital Committee, it's very hard because going back to when I was a deputy chief and we had a deputy chief of administration, I did the capital budget every year. The days of Marvin Gordon, Charlie McCarthy, Ewan, what was Ewan's last name?
Ennis.
Ewan Ennis, Glenn Pavlicek, Katie Conlon, prior chairs to yourself, Mr. Chair. We just couldn't find any money for capital. It took a lot of hard work from a lot of people to make this happen because it's one thing to build schools or build firehouses. You might remember in the most recent thing, in 2016, we got over 100 inches of snow in 35 days. This town was crippled. Our equipment was so antiquated and old, the town virtually shut down. I remember a great picture, not a great picture, but in my line of work, when I think of the bad things I've been to, over my years in policing here, you carry those memories with you, but I remember being on Hawthorne Road and looking at a Milton fire engine trying to get to a medical call that was buried above the wheels because we didn't have the capability, the equipment, or the infrastructure to plow the streets in our own town. So that's just one of probably 100 examples I could give you. So I'll shut up at this point. I do want to thank your Commissioner Laurie, who was her first year on the Capital Committee. I want to thank Kathy Cassis from this committee, who sat for many years, and also all the other members who come to our 7 a.m. meetings. Unfortunately now, although thank God for Zoom, because usually they're in this room. So thank you all for that, and thank you for your time, and thank you for your service to this community, because you're all very fortunate to live here. So, what are we here for? Not sure. So we're here to present, I believe you have it, the Capital Committee recommendations for FY '24. I'll let Nick kind of run with it a little bit, and if anyone has any questions, I'll be glad to answer. I will say this, though, I'm just going to jump to, and then I'll give it to you. Capital request for the next 5 years is $123 million. And just breaking down and that's to include, in your prior discussion, $75 million, which I believe is a very conservative number, $75 million for new school, $19.2 million for town school facilities improvements and upgrades, $6.6 million in DPW infrastructure, roads, sidewalks, traffic calming measures. I think I could probably go over this room, and every one of you could probably tell me 30 stories about traffic issues in this town, and you really wouldn't even have to think hard. Parks infrastructure, improvements, upgrades, same thing, field courts, reconstructions, the possibility of building a new teen center. $6 million in DPW building site improvements and upgrades, and $10 million in department equipment, technology, and vehicles. That's just for the next 5 years. So with that, I will shut up and give it to you. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wells. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, as Mr. Wells described, we pulled together a 5-year capital plan for 24 through 28. This has been the practice for the town in recent years, that we're continuing to just take a big picture look at those 5 years of requests, figure out what those long-term needs are, so it influences and affects our planning for each year as we go forward. So we'll revisit the requests made in that 5-year duration each new coming year and add on a new year to keep that 5-year plan rolling. Obviously, we also talk about those truly more long-term projects that might extend outside of that 5-year window. So there's some spreadsheets here in this presentation which aren't super exciting to look at, but this just shows in terms of what has been requested by departments. I did put this presentation into the shared drive folder, so you can all access it and play around with it if you'd like to look in a little bit more detail. Mr. Wells highlighted some of the few pieces, and I'll just add that school building project, we just threw in a number, and I think Sean has spoken to that number a little bit more, so I don't want anybody to take that number and go home with it and say that's it. We wanted to incorporate something into the plan, and we'll obviously continue to update that as we get more information as what that school project may or may not cost.
We did a similar thing with the fire stations before they got to reality over the 3 or 4 years leading up to that.
In terms of the fiscal 24 capital recommendation, we had about $6.7 million in requests. We are moving forward to recommend $4.2 million in items be authorized through debt issuances, $1.2 million funded by free cash, and then other funding sources, including the CPA, would fund a couple of the other projects that were included on the list. So a total recommendation of about $5.6 million, with about $1 million deferred to a future year. One of the things that we've talked a lot, obviously, in this committee understands is the free cash certification that we got. That enabled us to push more money into capital than we might normally. It's a good opportunity to buy some equipment, replace some equipment, invest in our facilities when we have a good number of free cash that is, in particular, when it's an outlier from what is typical here in Milton. I won't go through this, but I'll just show in terms of there's a full listing of all the projects that are going forward. I believe they were dumped into the warrant, draft of the warrant that we provided for you as well. So those are all listed. Just kind of big picture, we're by and large replacing equipment. There's not a lot of new stuff being added to anybody's inventory here. I think just about all of them are replacements. So it's identifying equipment at the end of their useful life, replacing it before they become no longer useful to us. A couple of highlights that I'll point out. $1 million for roadway construction. That's about typical what we try to do on an annual basis, about $1 million into the town streets. A new one is $100,000 towards small traffic calming projects. So this would enable DPW to go out and do some bump outs at sidewalks, do some daylighting at intersections. So we want to start incorporating money for those kinds of traffic calming projects that can help slow some of that traffic that we see going through and throughout Milton. An engine, you'll recall that last year at town meeting, the town meeting did authorize money for a new tower, a new ladder truck. That is replaced on an approximately 20-year cycle. The engines are each replaced. There are 4 of them, 3 in active duty, 1 in reserve, that are replaced on a 5-year cycle. So it's not that we're just adding equipment over the department. It's to keep those equipment on a regular life cycle. And I'll note, even when we approve this, that is probably 2 years away from showing up. So we'll get the money appropriated now, we'll place an order, and we'll sit around and wait for a while for that truck to be built and to arrive in Milton. One of the other things I'd like to point out is the salt shed down at DPW. This is a structure that has seen much better days, and it's time to replace it. So we have an item of $1 million in there to do that. We're hopeful that that is a pretty conservative number, that actual number will be lower than that. But that was something we had planned for 25, but we've brought forward because, again, if we wait till next year to appropriate the money, then we have to, whether we can get the project done before the winter season or not, we might be looking at really 2 years away. So we wanted to bring that forward to have that money ready in case the work is able to be done this summer, excuse me. And if not, then it'll be truly ready to go next spring. So the work can happen within the next fiscal year. Otherwise, there are other numerous town facility, school facility projects funded, just to, regular ongoing improvements and repairs to our town school facilities. Town IT equipment, we were able to get some money for Rob and his IT team here on the town departmental side to invest in our hardware, as well as start working on a phone upgrade in the town buildings. Same thing on the schools, within the schools. Hardware equipment, computer equipment, as well as end user devices for this Chromebooks in particular for students. And I think lastly, the last thing I wanted to mention is a $200,000 item for financial software. We're on legacy old equipment here in Milton. I shouldn't call it equipment. It kind of acts like equipment, but it's very.
It's kind of like having a black and white TV.
Yes. So we're looking to finance an upgrade to the financial software, general ledger, our payroll, accounts payable, and human resources to begin with. Our current system is being supported, but no longer being updated in any real way. So it's come time to look at some upgrades, and we've been engaging with vendors on where to go from there. Obviously, that's a big lift, a big change to staff, but it's time before we're truly one of the last standing on this equipment, the software that we use currently. Happy to take any questions or speak to anything else in particular. I'll just note on terms of the enterprise funds, we have a water enterprise fund debt project, which is our typical debt authorization for water enterprise fund to fund capital improvements to our water infrastructure. That is funded through the MWRA. And then the other piece is stormwater. We have a small typical annual appropriation to maintain the town's stormwater collection system. And that is included. Those are separate articles from the regular capital budget article, but they're in the warrant. The one that we typically do have but don't this year is for sewer enterprise. That's because MWRA hasn't announced their program yet. If you'll recall, in December, we did have a warrant article to authorize money for the sewer enterprise fund to take advantage of the MWRA program, which was 75% grant, 0% interest loan for the balance. If they renew that program, we'll have to have an article at a future town meeting to take advantage of it again for the upcoming fiscal year, but we're waiting for news on that. So that's a big picture on capital, and obviously happy to take any questions.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you guys for your service. Appreciate this clarity of budget. My question regards the technology allocation. You talk about capital being a 5-year turnover, right? I know in my business, at least, software, technology, computers are in a 3-year cycle because, with planned obsolescence, everything, if you have a computer that's 5 years old, if you can run it, good luck to you. So what kind of turnover cycle are you on in terms of technology? I know we made some investments, but are we moving from the Stone Age, or are we still just treading here?
So I would say that Rob has done a great job from what I can see from the town departments in terms of doing the best that he can within the budget that he has. That's why he asked for $67,000 in fiscal '24, because there's catch-up to be done. What he has in his budget, he's not able to replace the kind of equipment he used to. So this is a little bit of a catch-up year to try to get to. I think ideally we'd be a little bit longer than a 3-year cycle on our computers and equipment. I think we'd be closer to a 5 to 8 year lifespan. In terms of the schools, I can't speak directly about them. I know for their Chromebooks, for example, they're on a 20% replacement of those Chromebooks over the course of this 5 years. So that would, again, get to a 5-year life cycle on those end user devices.
I mean, too, if it drops below 5 years, it becomes an operating expense for the department versus a capital expense.
I see. Okay, I got
And
you.
I think we all know that the iPhone you buy or the laptop you buy today by the time you get out the door to your car to leave, it's already outdated.
Right,
So
right.
that's one of the difficulties that, if it's less than 5 years, you can't bond it. So it
Gotcha.
becomes an operating cost.
And that's how we, like for the police cruisers, for
Yes.
example, those are within the police department budget rather than in capital because those are closer to even a 3-year lifespan with the amount of hours and miles that we put on those vehicles. So those won't typically show up in a capital budget, as an example there. And I think, long-term, should some of this IT expenses really show up in our operating budget, I think we should probably have a conversation about that, about building up those budgets so that they reflect the IT burdens that we have in terms of a town, rather than hoping for a good free cash number, being able to fund it through the capital budget.
Right.
Because if we didn't have that $4.4 million, then we'd have some
Exactly.
tough decisions to make.
And that's exactly the same pushback I give to the school budget that we talk about in terms of we've been living off this, some of the generosity, some of the grants, some of the things that have happened around, right? We need to, at some point, have a functional IT plan. They said that's not based off free cash. I think that's important. We've talked about that in terms of the bigger plan for the town for a while. Because to me, if you leave your equipment out for 8-10 years, it's fine. You want to do that. You know you're going to be outdated. You know you're going to risk it. But then you got to have corresponding insurance to protect you from the security attacks, right? So that's what I know we are talking about insurance, but my small business just had a friend they take over you. You got to give $1 million ransomware that you're paying. So you're going to pay it one way. Are we paying it insurance? And I haven't checked to see what the ransomware provisions are in our insurance. As a committee, I think we
need to get on that.
Well, I'll have to look at it, Jay. And when we get to our, I finally found some data I've beaten Jay to. That Jay has now found first. This is a great moment in history. Got it.
It's on tape.
It's on tape too. I know. You can't touch your computer for the next 5 minutes. But I'm just saying that I think it's a trade-off here, right? And I would encourage us to think about giving a solidly secured machine. Versus, I agree, we want a capital, but 8 years out, you better have the ransomware insurance. So it's going to get us one way or the other.
Agreed. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Can I ask, talk me through the terms basically. So bonded capital items means we're going to borrow money from Wall Street to pay for it over this time. Non-bonded capital items means we're going to pay cash. Is that correct? Okay. So how did you, I know we've got a lot of free cash this year, how did you make the decision of which items go on which list?
We try to, more expensive items as a starting point.
Okay.
And then the other place we'll go to items that will have a longer useful life, so that money can be paid back over a longer duration of time. And then, so that's basically kind of the way we approach it. Useful life plus cost, and try to balance it out that way. So like some vehicles we'll try to buy with free cash because they might not last as long, but a vehicle that we think, an everyday vehicle that might last upwards of 10 years or more, we feel more comfortable putting that out for debt authorization.
Okay. So big picture of the town budget, we had a lot of free cash. We're putting $500,000 in stabilization, I believe. If we were to take, let's say, $100,000 out of that stabilization and buy one of these $100,000 line items that we're bonding,
That wasn't funded? Oh, that's being bonded.
it's being bonded. Well, that's another thing, is things that aren't being funded also is tempting. But let's keep it simple. One of these that's being bonded. So then our ongoing expenses year after year would be lower. 'Cause is that crazy? Is that like buying a house with cash? I mean, I don't know. You tell me.
It's funny, so I've been on this committee for 6 years. I wish Amy was here, because the last person, the 2 people I want to thank before was obviously Amy Dexter is an essential role in this, and Karen Proval was before. So you look out, 5, 10, what can you spread? Like, you might, probably bought the land for St. Agatha's. Well, land is definitely something you want, because you could definitely bond that out over
Okay.
versus taking, let's take $880,000 in free cash and just pay it that way. So that's, it's almost, and it's kind of almost what, at least in my life, it's kind of almost what we do in our lives. We try to push the things out, that we can, and pay now for the things that we can with what's in hand.
Yeah.
I do give Amy a lot of credit. I give Karen as well, particularly in the past 2 years. We'll go through ARPA, now we have CPA. Sometimes we had the Hurley Amendment on the fire stations. I mean, some people have really, Emery Fagan, who's not with us, but who came back, have really worked hard to try and kind of spread this to get the community the enhancements they need. And these are, we're only funding ones, right? We're only able to fund number ones on requests?
Pretty much.
Yeah, pretty much just ones. So your department,
top priority.
Just your
Okay.
top priority is all you're gonna get. And Bill Ritchie, who's the last one, which person I'm gonna talk about before I leave tonight, just for briefly, he talks about it all the time, just when you look at how much there is, it's
Okay.
it's mind-blowing. So I
That,
go ahead.
yeah, that makes me feel even more so. Like you said, you pay for what you can and you borrow for what you can't.
Yes.
So maybe it's a bad analogy, but it's like if you have a car loan and you get a winning lottery ticket, do you put that winning lottery ticket in the bank and keep paying your car loan, or do you pay off your car note? So the free in this analogy, the free cash, we're us. The free cash is the winning lottery ticket. So these, and do we put it in the bank, like stabilization fund, or do we maybe pay down one of these $100,000 things so that then, every year from now, our capital, our borrowing budget is a little bit less?
Don't forget, we're maintaining a AAA bond rating.
Yeah,
And that
yeah.
is critical.
Okay.
And everyone from the town administrator, the town accountant, to our, Powers, our bonding.
So we're borrowing?
Everybody is always, that is critical. Imagine if we could. Imagine if we were a community that was real, even as tough as some of the decisions you make in this room are, imagine if we couldn't even be having the discussion to make some of them at all.
But I guess I'd still have my question.
You're always, I always have a question, but I get that. So Amy and Nick, and this is Nick's first year on this, he's coming from a smaller community to a much larger community with change. He came in with nobody, and now it's like, so they really worked hard on this. We're very fortunate that Amy was here before and came back and, knows the nuts and bolts so well.
Just to speak a little bit more to that, I don't disagree that that might be a good option, especially where our interest rates are high. 2 years ago, if we're borrowing this at 1%, okay, issue some debt. It's really not a big deal at that point. That's why I think the free cash number is where it is, because at $1.2 million, we can really invest in some capital. I didn't push to go beyond that, because I think based on our forecast is where we anticipate our debt service costs over the next few years, it's still within the range that we want to be, and it's pretty moderate increases for those forthcoming years. So we didn't feel that we were biting off more than we can chew in terms of bonding some of these items. So I get where you're coming from on it, but I think that's why the free cash number is $1.2 million.
2 years ago, we only spent we only took $100,000 out of free cash for capital in 21. To your point though about the analogy, I've been using DraftKings, should we want my? But you're right, it is, that the $4 million, this is like, it doesn't happen, just.
Right.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Mr. Chair, I just wanted to follow up on, thank you for your presentation. And I want to ask you, you said you have your ones, and you dealt with your ones, maybe not all your ones. So your twos, do they disappear?
No.
Or do they come back as ones next year?
Some of these this year, the twos from last year become the ones that we're pretty tough about that, unless something, like COVID created some unusual curve, but like, I use the public health, working in the Board of Health in this town in 2019 was a much different role than it is in 2023.
Right.
So things like that come up, that, all the PPE things, all the things that we had to do just to reinforce and create an infrastructure, those are things that, those could change it, but usually we try to move the twos up to ones. And at least in my time, we've always been like, to the department heads, don't throw your two away and come back next year with a nut. Oh, this was my 52, now it's my.
Right.
There are things like the tower. I think we moved the tower up a year for two reasons. One, we know these 40 bids are all, and the fire department has got to be able to deal with it. 7-Eleven, if anyone was involved, and I was started in this as chief and then threw it on the select board, that proposal 7-Eleven is a public safety, truly a complex problem for Milton Fire to ever have to deal with that, when it's built. Well, if it were, we were hoping it wouldn't be built in its way, but not, it's, when it's built. So, it's gonna take 2.5 years to build that tower. So we felt, knowing that, let's get it funded, we've got it funded. With this board's help and town meeting's help, we got it, so it's in process now. So hopefully it's here in 2.5 years versus 5 years.
Okay.
So that, things like that, we, as long as in the committee, we try to be somewhat visionary as well as just dealing with what's on the plate today.
That goes to another question I had, that given all of the new development coming in the next, I don't know, 1 to 3 to 2 to 5 years,
The rest
whatever,
of our
pick a
lives.
number.
Steve will disagree, says we're not getting any.
That's not fair.
No, I'm kidding. No, I was giving you compliments.
Are there things beyond the tower that you guys are looking at now that anticipate that seem like things that you would have to invest in now, knowing that we have substantial growth coming in the next few years?
I think you
Are
just
there
heard,
any
I think
things
you heard a
that-
passionate one from Mr. O'Rourke tonight. I think you heard a very passionate one
Beyond
from
that?
Mr. O'Rourke tonight. I think that, I worry very much about traffic. I always have. People don't, study traffic. I was chair of the traffic commission for 10 years. We take 200,000 cars a day through this town. This town was not, we don't have the infrastructure. Even 93, when it opened in the 1950s, was built through the hole. My father always referred to it as the hole in the square. Because my father came on the police department in 1949, so he was there through most of it. It was built to handle 50,000 cars a day, 25 and 25. And that's, I do worry, people talk about developments and this and that, and I just said this to Nick the other day, we were in a meeting, I said, I want you to just walk out, I just picked one street, I said, walk to this intersection right here, the one you're gonna get through tonight, Canton Highland, on any day, either in the morning or the afternoon, and just look at this street from between Canton Highland and the Parkway in Highland, which both of these intersections 10 years ago didn't even have traffic lights, they were just stop signs. That part, people talk about traffic mitigation, that's a tough thing, it really is, it's a tough thing. That was my own personal one, so that one just jumped out when you asked it.
That's what I thought of when you were talking about the traffic mitigation, just with a development going in our neighborhood. That was one of the things that came up about
Absolutely.
slowing traffic down. So I didn't know if there were other things along those lines.
I
But
think,
thank
well,
you.
I think the fire department, hopefully, when it's done, one thing, I don't want to get off subject, but like the fire department's pushed off, just due to the high interest rates, trying to live within what's been appropriate, they've pushed off, I think, already a year on starting East Milton. Maybe even 2 years, maybe even like 2, because the interest rate just, like Nick said, you're not borrowing at 2020 rates, you're borrowing at 2023 rates. So if everybody's watching TV today, it's not looking too good, so. So that's why when I first came in and I thanked all of you, this is high, it really is. For the veterans that are here and for the people who just, the citizens who just said, this is high. You probably had no idea before you walked in here how hard and how the decisions that are made affect our lives, and that's really a pretty important thing in this community. So, also, I did want to say, I'm sorry, I don't know if there's any more questions. I was trying to get us out the door.
Well, I'm here, so.
I just want, go ahead, Mr. Chair.
You have closing remarks?
I just want to thank Bill Ritchie. I don't know if he's been before the committee this year, but when I think about, for me, having the unusual role of being a department head for 10 years, working alongside him, and then being in this role for the past 6, we are so lucky in this town to have had someone who did so much. He has saved this community millions of dollars through his efforts and what he's done to maintain our infrastructure. So consolidated facilities was a word that I didn't even exist when I came to work for this town. And look at it today, how important it became for us. So we are very fortunate. Bill's really served this town. So I didn't want to leave without saying that. So if there's no more, I'm getting out of here. And thank you again all for your efforts. Have a good night.
Thank you.
So with regards to this, thank you, gentlemen. With regards to this, I had put down discussion and vote. It does involve money. Due to the special nature of the Capital Improvement Planning Committee and their recommendation, we have a member of the Warrant Committee that's on it. It's presented by the if we wanted to have further discussion and roll this into our larger budget conversations, that might be appropriate, but I would ask for what's the sense of the committee with regards, I did put vote in it, to be able to, but is that what we should do, or should we defer the discussion and vote to a later time when we're talking about the budget as a whole? Jay?
Tom? I would like to talk about this later as a part of the budget as a whole.
Okay.
I don't want to.
It's my sense that that's the sense of the committee. Okay. So we'll do that then. Let's see, is Nick still here?
Yeah.
Nick, can you please give us your presentation with regards to discussion and vote on the annual town meeting article to rescind unissued debt?
Sure, this is a quick one.
Yes.
I mentioned this when I was given an update in terms of all the warrant articles. So the intention behind this would be to rescind debt for projects that have been completed, but maybe we authorized $1 million and the project only cost $950,000. So we still carry the $50,000 delta in this example on our books as unissued debt. Routinely, and I think the previous time that we did this was in 2019, we will come to town meeting and ask town meeting to vote to rescind
Thank you.
that unissued debt just to clean it off our books. So Amy is working on that article, still going through what's out there as unissued debt. I don't have those numbers for you tonight, but we'll get them for you before your meeting Monday, so you'll have that to take up either Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday of next week.
Okay, thank you. So it looks like a vote on that would be premature because we don't have those numbers. Very well. Thank you for your presentation.
You're welcome.
All right. Okay, the next item on the agenda, let's go with the annual town meeting article to acquire property located off of Guile Road. So, as it came to pass, can we please pull up the red-lined land swap article? Now, we have distributed this to everyone on the committee. Can we just verify that Kristen Kosil is on?
Are there extras for,
She is
or do you
here.
want to, you have it up there, too, right? Or,
Good, thank you. So, did have an opportunity to watch the meeting last night. Did anyone else watch the meeting last night? Some people watched the meeting last night. Is that there was they reopened the warrant. Now, what reopening the warrant means is that the select board does have the power and authority to reopen the warrant to make changes to warrant articles. They can do that. So we have a red-lined, to make it easy for us to read, what their changes were. You will recognize many of them. There was the renumbering. There was the taking out the language with regards to municipal purposes, including without imitation. They put in the school language that we talked about. Could whoever has that on, please mute it? Thank you. Number 2, same kind of thing to school. 3, same kind of thing to school. 4, was a point well taken. We brought that up. That there was approximately 5 acres of land located at the corner of Highland Street and Canton Avenue, which are taking out of the proposed swap. The result of that would be that they would be putting 5 acres less in. And then they provided language that's essentially the same as we did with regards to a reversion clause. That, same kind of thing, that we said that if the funding was not created, it shall transfer back. Okay? So they made those changes, and it was the vote of the select board that should be the article. So my reading of it is the only real difference from what we voted on, you may disagree. The only real difference here with regards to the swap is that the Highland Street comes out, and if we hadn't picked that out, the only changes to this would have been, they would have been incorporating our language into their article. Normally, it works the other way, is that we get, be that as it may. Then, with regards to the other article, with regards to eminent domain, so the way it works is that we weren't changing the article. To Warrant Committee, we don't change the article. The article is a proposal that comes to us by way of the Select Board, a citizen, other boards. And then we create a recommendation that we vote on. And we, in our review, in our discussion, we had made some changes. So what we had done is, like, for instance, in our recommendation, because the article, neither article referred to Pope Pond. I want to make sure it's Pope or Popes. Popes. All right, Pope's Pond. Is because when we went to our vote, the only information we had on Pope's Pond was sort of an oral representation that it would end up. But when we had the article before us, we didn't have anything. So we put that into our recommendation. That should be the recommendation of. So what they did to clean this up was to put Pope's Pond into the article itself. So that's essentially what we voted on. So what I'm pointing out here is it looks like the changes that are presented us in the proposed article from the Select Board, the change is that 5 acres located in the corner of Highland Street and Canton Ave would not be part of the swap. So, with regard to these articles, the way I would like to proceed is this, is that we last addressed this matter at our last Warrant Committee meeting. It went until 11 o'clock on Monday. We are, at this time, at our next meeting. We're only 2 hours of Warrant Committee clock time away from that, having only gotten here because in order to extend the courtesy to the previously scheduled people, I chose as chair, and this is my prerogative, to not call this first. Had I called this first, this would have been 0 minutes of clock time for the committee away from our discussion. I therefore find that a motion to reconsider our previous vote is timely and in order. I would ask each of you to look at the changes that I have just put before you, which we have seen, we've reviewed. Some of us watched this Select Board meeting. I'd ask you to look at them. I would ask you to ask yourself, do any of the changes that you see, do they cause you to believe, or is it your opinion, that the substance of these changes is enough to cause you to make a motion to reconsider, and I'm talking about both articles. And then, as we know, a motion to reconsider is made by a person from what we'll call the prevailing party. And so what I would ask for is for a member of the Warrant Committee who voted no, the noes having prevailed by my tally 7-6 at these votes. Is there a member, so this is what I'm laying it out, a member of the no votes to make a motion to reconsider? A second can be made The second can be made by anyone. It's one. So, this is my question. Can we confirm that Kristen is on and can hear us?
I'm on. Yep, I can hear you.
Thank you, Kristen. My recollection is Kristen was one of the no's, and I just wanted to make sure that she could hear us.
Yeah, and I will not make a motion to reconsider.
Thank you. I'm going to ask, is there a motion from the floor? I'm going to ask one more time. Is there a motion from the floor? Not hearing a motion from the floor, I find that there is not a motion to reconsider. There having been previously a vote upon this article that was substantively the same. The Warrant Committee deliberated upon this matter, having heard it presented to it several times. We conducted our inquiry. We engaged in public, open, honest, frank debate, and we have a vote. We have a recommendation to present to the town. This matter should be decided by town meeting. With regards to this next article, with regards to eminent domain, that vote having been 7-6 with the noes prevailing. Is there a motion from the floor? I will ask one more time. Is there a motion from the floor?
Sorry.
Wait.
With regards to the eminent domain, I think we voted no recommendation, right?
Right.
We did.
So we didn't vote.
We rescinded the no vote and we voted no recommendation. The yes vote.
Right.
yeah.
So we voted no recommendation. Thank you for that. Okay, so then my motion with regards to the motion to reconsider is not appropriate in that matter. Okay? Let's talk about that article. Where we are now is that we have voted to not reconsider the article with regards to the land swap. The question in the article with regards to eminent domain is back before us. I'll read the language. I'm going to read this in its entirety so that we can be clear. To see if the town will vote to authorize the select board to acquire for school purposes by purchase, taking by eminent domain or otherwise all or a portion of the parcels of land owned by the town of Milton and located off Guile Road and Blue Hill Parkway, which parcels are shown on the town assessor's maps as map D, block 6A and B, lot 65, and to see what consideration the town will vote for purposes of this article, whether by appropriation, transfer of land, including approximately 6 acres of land located on Randolph Avenue, approximately 3 acres of land on Herrick Drive, approximately 1 acre located on School Street, approximately 5 acres of land located in a corner of Highland Street and Canton Avenue, approximately 41 acres of land located around Pope's Pond, and possibly other land to be determined prior to town meeting, which are held by the town for general purposes as shown on plans, copies of which are on file at the Office of the Director of Planning and Community Development or otherwise, and to act on anything relating thereto. Therefore, bear with me. So now that they have put the Pope Pond back in, the question would be on our recommendation. Our recommendation, as we have done before, would be with regards to whether the town would vote to accept and approve that language. Is there a motion from the floor? or from the committee with regards to this article?
Does it have to be from someone who voted a certain way?
At this point, no, if it's not a motion to reconsider.
Can we ask factual questions before we make a motion?
You mean open for discussion?
I don't know what I mean. Here's
Or
what-
it's
can I tell you what I
discussion, it's
mean,
open
Mr.
for
Chair?
discussion, it's open for discussion, go ahead.
I was confused about the factual status of Pope's Pond 2 nights ago. I'm still confused about the factual status of Pope's Pond. Is there any way we can learn the factual status of Pope's Pond, Mr. Chair?
So what do you mean by factual status of Pope's Pond?
There was discussion around the table of, is it already conservation land? Is it not already conservation land? Did the town vote to make it conservation land? I was confused about that. And I don't know if we can get any answers.
Steve?
So I did have a conversation today with the planning board, a member of the planning board, and they told me that's already in conservation. And it definitely is no doubt.
So now I'm more confused.
Why?
Because we're getting conflicting information.
I don't know why.
That's why I think we had spoke about it being a separate article then.
Yeah, we did, sorry.
So I believe that this being added is not appropriate for this article. I think our recommendation was to keep it separate and discuss that. And I think
I don't remember that.
I believe.
I mean, it was discussed around the table, but I don't think.
No, but that was in our recommendation, correct, Mr. Chair?
Do we have that up? Do we have our,
Some of the members are saying yes, so I
All right,
don't,
let's
I'm not
pull it up.
thinking, yeah.
The yellow version?
or I'm sorry, do we have from our last meeting, the changes that we made to the article?
It's gonna take a second.
Yep, thank you.
I think-
JJ?
I think what we voted no recommendation on, because we didn't want to vote against Pope's Pond, was Pope's Pond was in the thing we voted on, no recommendation, I think.
No, it wasn't.
And it wasn't in
It was
there.
in the language that we voted yes or no on. And we voted yes, and then we undid that vote yes. It was in that language. I know because I wrote it, and I sent it to Karen.
And was it in the no recommendation, or we don't know?
Well, it can't be or not be in the no recommendation. It's just a no recommendation.
But Jay, it was in the language you wrote.
It was in the
not
language
the
I wrote
official
that we
language.
voted.
It wasn't in the official language. It's in the-
It wasn't in the
I'm sorry?
I don't think
article.
you voted on Jay's language. Did you vote on your language?
That was the language I sent you. You put it up on the screen, and that's what we voted yes or no on.
Did not vote on that language.
That's why
Well,
we check.
we voted yes, and then we undid that vote.
You voted against Pope's Pond. Yeah,
All right,
exactly, he was there.
Mr. Chairman, may I
go ahead, O'Henny.
So I'm perplexed, and I'm struggling to understand. And so I may be the dummy here, which would not be the first time, certainly not be last. So I really need, as we're having discussion, this team to break this down for me. Pope's Pond is either in conservation now, which some people believe it is, or would be put into conservation by this article. I think, right?
Hold on.
Just let me land. Let me land plane, and then, okay. Either way, it was going to end up in the same position, in conservation. So whether it is or whether it's not, has the same outcome in terms of conservation land. Has the same outcome, right? In my opinion, you can disagree. The outcome in terms of this land with Pope's Pond, nothing changes status. It's either going to be in conservation or put into conservation. So you end up on the same. So to me, it's only material as to was someone trying to deceive us by not putting in or yes. That's the material question. Were we intentionally being misled? I think which came up last time. We can either spend time as a warrant committee unpacking if we were intentionally misled, or we can assume the good faith of those who presented to us and not waste more time and not waste more money. We've already heard about people hours. I know what I bill out an hour. This is getting expensive. We voted for it, before we voted against it, before we pulled back the vote, do we really want to go down this road again? Do we really want to go down this road again? And my question to this team is, to what end? The question that we voted against it, we corrected our vote because it did not match the vote of the previous article, which we are not open to discuss. I still, for the life of me, do not know how we talk about a land swap, eminent domain, and post pond, and it's like we're dancing around this thing called a school that we're not supposed to see. It's the real issue here. Let's all pretend we're not talking about a school. Let's all pretend it's not about schools. This is a vote about schools. I'm just going to say it. It is. Let me land the plane. Now, please, Al-Qaeda, do not
You gotta
hijack.
bring it in. I'll foam the runway. Bring it in.
Okay, I'm going to land it. This is a vote about schools. And I look at every member. This is a vote about schools. Let's not pretend. We've got 1 million letters in our inbox. We've got 1 million. Everyone's like, well, we're apolitical. I'm just here. No, we're not. Not when you've seen all the input we've gotten. This is about schools. And that's why we didn't want to send a confusing message to the town by voting for this and voting against the previous article. They are linked. It is one story. And so we can play these games and sit here and say it's about Post Pond, and Post Pond is in my backyard. I went and threw a stone in it just to say, your conservation land, it said yes. I said, your conservation land, it said yes. It makes no difference. We can waste people's time in this town by jerking us around on these little points when really what we need to get to is talk about this school. Now, I, for one, would like to hear, if we want to have that discussion, let's have it. But if we don't, let's not talk about whether Post Pond's in conservation, which is going to be the same endpoint for this article. Plane landed.
Thank you. I'm going to chair's prerogative. I'm going to jump in front of you, Steve. He's right. The discussion on Pope's Pond caused absolute chaos. Absolute chaos, and it's back. Maybe this is about your school. It's your vote, Ohani. And maybe it's other people's votes. I don't know. There's a lot of nuance, and that's what the problem was, is that we were trying to negotiate a nuanced view. We're in the middle of a discussion. We were very close to just going to no recommendation, and then we spent 90 minutes down the rabbit hole on Pope's Pond, and that allowed the chaos. Opens a door. The Warrant Committee is confused and doesn't know what it's doing. And here we are. So I'd like to get to the point. It's the article, and people are going to have their vote. The point is definitely not Pope's Pond. Here, the article calls for a taking by eminent domain. So can we please keep our eye on the ball? And it's a caution that I'm making. Let's keep our eye on the ball, okay? So I took the prerogative on that. Steve Geister.
No, I was just going to say that I don't agree that we should even be considering Pope's Pond because it has nothing to do with what this was. And I think it was just a play by the people who are dying to build a school to convince people they're going to get, 70 acres for 3, where in reality, the town already owns it. It's in Conservation Committee. It just needs to go to town meeting for a final vote. And all the paperwork's done, all the proper committees have already voted for it, including the Select Board. And the other comment I wanted to make, and for Mr. O'Rourke, there's never been a school approved by the town. All that was approved was $40,000 funding to do a study. Nobody voted there, and I just checked the people that were at that town meeting, and it was not. So I'd appreciate apologize for that.
No, at this point, I'd ask us to refrain from attacks directed towards individuals. Mr. O'Rourke came here in good faith. He's always come here in good faith. And we may disagree on the characterization, but I would ask that the committee, moving forward from now, I'm going to tighten it up a little bit, if we would all direct all comments to the chair. Thank you. Okay, JJ.
I want to break your rule right away. It's in good faith, though.
It's easy.
You
to
could
just
say
say
a
it to
member.
David.
Yeah,
Just
yeah,
say
you
it.
could say there was a member.
Lori and I went to the site walkthrough on Saturday, and there is confusion about Post Pond. And the only reason I'm speaking about it is because Steve mentioned it.
So you're going with, but he started it?
Yes, I
He
am.
started it.
And there is confusion because the Conservation Commission itself is confused. And what we learned, and Lori can back me up on this if she wants, this is my recollection, town meeting in 1963 voted for Post Pond to be put into conservation. And there is a conservation book where it is recorded in this book as being in conservation. But it was never recorded legally. It is not in conservation. And so a member held up this book and said it's in conservation, and the Conservation Commissioner said, no, it is not. It is not legally in conservation.
A question. So if that's null and void, if this is null and void, then it will go away by operational law. And we can let other people figure this out later. I'd ask the committee what are we doing here? Okay? I am close to make a formal ruling that any sentence involving the phrase Pope's Pond is out of order. I would like to focus, thank you for that. It was a point of clarification, right? The real question is going to come down to the vote. And I want, again, we're just a warrant committee here. We're not voting. We're not voting to build a school, a recommendation to the town hall, to the town meeting, okay? Like, that's where this needs to go. That's where this needs to be resolved. And then, the role of the warrant committee here is, we're generally supposed to be insulated. We're not elected, right? So we're not responsive to the voters like a elected official is. We come in, diverse backgrounds, diverse opinions, to think this stuff through, to be a deliberative body. And the level of harassment that some of us have received over the last day, especially phone calls, people confronted on the street, whatever. It's not keeping in the spirit with that. I ask the committee to keep in the spirit of what our job is, okay? If Post Pond is null and void, oh my God. Oh, does that mean I have to resign, please? Right? If it just goes away, it goes away. So all right, said it. Steve.
I just have a point of order. We've already voted on this, so why are we discussing voting on it again?
Yeah, no, I think that's the point is because the select board reopened it. Okay? The select board reopened it. Okay?
And correct. And if the select board reopens it, we have to now
We have to address
reauthorize
it. We have to address it. It is, I think it's within, I think within my prerogative as chair to not bring it and to say that we have voted. This is not a substantive change. And I find that it goes to town meeting with a recommendation. We had one. I could easily say we have already addressed this essentially as it is, and that I find that a vote on this would be redundant and a waste of time. But instead of doing that,
thank you.
You are welcome, O'Henny. Okay? Okay. Allison, Amanda, Steve.
This is about a discussion to your point about eminent domain, and this is, for many of us, does not make us not for schools. This is about taking property by eminent domain. So, to your saying it's about the schools, I understand for the other article, but for this article, it's about taking property by eminent domain. To a point that I don't necessarily agree with having to take another vote, I feel like as members of this committee, we have, from the last vote, been communicated from outside, been harassed. This is us volunteering. It is totally inappropriate for elected officials to contact members of people's families, members here, and try to get us to switch on this article is absolutely unacceptable. It makes me like uneasy even talking about it. And, you know, we talked about, we should have had a higher level from what we've spoke at town meeting, and we are not honoring that. So to intimidate us, and nobody came on Monday, and it's like, we all came today, you know, and I think that it's not, it's something that we have to think about more seriously as we go forward in some of these articles. So I want to, as the group, remember that for some of us who are making this decision, it's not, we can find other avenues, and we're only talking about eminent domain in this. And that's what I have to say.
So it was Steve, then Amanda, or was Amanda, then Steve? And then, go ahead.
No one has spoken. I'll wait till the relap once.
So I have a question about revisiting this only when I'm thinking about, and this is, I guess, a point of order question. So a new article came before us that has to do with additional funding for the committee, the $275,000, which to me, as we were talking about it, and I know like when, I think you brought it, one of the members brought up some great questions as to sort of what's the financial impact now versus putting it off with respect to that $275,000. And there is a point here, I promise. I guess my question is, the other day when we were talking about it, this article, in voting one way or the other, the discussion became about fiscal responsibility and saying if this passed, then, like if the town passed it, then we are saying we believe doing it in the most fiscally responsible way would be this. And so I guess that's my question, is now we're looking at talking about additional funding within another article, which brings in additional spending. Like there's now another sort of budget implication to it, in my mind. So it's saying that if it were to pass by town, even though we didn't recommend it, we are now saying that we would recommend it's by eminent domain, because then that is more fiscally responsible than to then throw good money after bad, which would be more than essentially $275,000 is what it would take. Does that make any sense?
It does, and I have a chair's prerogative for one moment. And I think that part of what you're talking about is why we ended up at no recommendation. I think that there were people who did not want to vote for eminent domain at this time, who would, if at town meeting, the people of the town voted for the land swap to proceed, would support eminent domain then.
Mr. Chair, I
all
say
the
that's
reasons.
presumptuous for us to say. We cannot, as we see, we cannot presume. What we will have at town meeting then is the argument we had last night for 2 hours in the middle of town meeting. If the warrant committee, in my opinion, does not do its job and do the work up front. That's my concern as far as that goes.
So that's a good point, and I think that part of the scheme that we have discussed was that going into town meeting, we could have a subsequent vote amongst ourselves. If, like, right before we meet before the town meeting in our little locker room, if you will, right? And then at that time, we could have our discussion, and I, as chairman of the warrant committee, could have a recommendation in my back pocket ready to go. Okay? And presumptuous. I will presumptuously say my sense of this committee is, should that come to pass, there would probably be overwhelming support for eminent domain if. Anyway.
Mr. Chair, I'm going to respectfully disagree with you
That's
on
fine.
Steve, I was listening.
Okay, I took the wheel. It was Steve.
Okay. That's okay. No, thanks for all the comments. And, you know, as I reflect upon the last couple days and what's happened to me personally with calls at 7 a.m., text messages, you name it, it's very stressful. You know, a remark from the select board about, you know, property tonight, that took that kind of personally as well. That's not fair. It's a separate issue with the neighborhood association, Wells I'm referring to, if you want to watch it back. Listen, I'm for the schools. I'm 100% behind putting another school in this town. There is no question in my mind behind that. I think it's the right thing to do. There's overpopulation. I sit here many times with a turned stomach watching, you know, that they have partitions in rooms where kids are, you know, together. They don't have a private classroom, right? And that's really tough. However, looking at what I've heard tonight, right? And I think I've shared this with you. There is a narrative that has to be told. There's a reference to a book called Weekend Language. It talks about, tell the story about what's happening here, right? I found additional information tonight about breaking out $275,000 of additional costs, 15% of which is a design fee, right? Which I see this all the time because it's in the wheelhouse of what I do, and I appreciate what Sean, Mr. O'Rourke has done. He's worked his tail off, and I certainly respect that. I was personally confused by all the I won't say the waterway area, that, you know, but, you know, for me, the question was, you know, what's most fiscally responsible for our town, right, to avoid litigation, right? It seems to me, by going in and start moving tiles around, it opens the town up to long-term litigation, which could stretch further than we want it to, right? So there's the design process that takes 2+ years, potentially longer, 5 to build or whatever it's gonna take, and then litigation on top of all that. This is 10 years. None of our kids in this room will probably have that classroom. That concerns me, and I'm trying to process it all, and I am feeling the pressure with everybody in here that have never come to any of these meetings here, and I do feel pressured. I mean, it's a lot, it's palpable, and, you know, I was also in town meeting when, you know, and rightfully so, someone articulated that they felt threatened several times, which I don't think is right ever. That's how, I know how that feels. That's how I felt this whole week. It's questioned why I volunteer for anything. And, you know, I do think we have to talk about facts here. I'm not sure I can come to a decision quickly. This is super important. I think that previous article we were talking about is very specific on a land swap, does not mention school. That language was added in there by us because we articulated on it, right? Now it's carried inside there. So we made it very purposeful, I think. Again, I'm pro-school in all this, but we have to find a way to get there. I'm not saying no, and thanks for the floor.
Go ahead.
Does anyone else want to speak?
A new chair. No, I'm sorry.
Oh, Judy.
That was a joke.
No,
It was a bad
Judy,
joke.
I don't take offense to that. It's okay. I believe the Warrant Committee
Direct
should be
the
there.
chair.
Mr. Chair, I don't take offense
Chair,
to.
I'm
I
sorry. I
don't
was
take
trying
to
to
Member
be
Steele's
jealous.
comment.
Yes.
I think there is a. I appreciate a little levity in the middle of this. I challenged this committee on this article when it came up, which I voted to abstain on, because I believe we relinquished our duty as the Warrant Committee by not helping the town make a decision. By going to have a fight in May in front of the committee, I believe we abdicate our responsibility. And I don't think that's our role. I agree, Mr. Chair, I agree with what Member Rice has said, that there is pressure here, but this is the job. Right? In the middle of all my company's funds being locked up by SVB, that's no one's fault.
Right.
Trying to make my payroll on today. With my accountant up every hour trying to get our money out of the bank so we could pay people so they could eat. We had this discussion till 11 p.m. And frankly, my payroll was late because of me being here, and it pissed me off. And I'm sure the employees who you don't have to care about because it's not your problem. I'm just venting. Forgive me. I apologize. My point is, I challenged this Warrant Committee and said, if we look at this eminent domain, as much as I dislike eminent domain, is the most fiscally advantageous way to take this land. It saves the most money. No one here can say otherwise. If anyone can challenge that, please tell us how it's more advantageous to go down lawsuits. Member Rice said lawsuits. Without eminent domain, you feel fire to those lawsuits. It is the most fiscally responsible way. Everyone didn't say anything or agreed. Yet, we talk about fiscal responsibility, but we don't, when it comes to this, now suddenly we want to think about these other things that are, is this really about fiscal responsibility? Is that what we're here to do? Challenge me. Tell me it's not the most fiscally responsible way to do this. And so you want to talk about postpone, we want to talk about this. Once again, the member just pointed out before me, Member Gagnon pointed out before me, if you take the issue of schools and you try and take it out of the budget, do you know what percentage of the budget, do you know how short our meeting would be? It's connected to everything we do. It's the largest portion of our budget. Member Rice is correct. You cannot remove it. It is the heart of this town's budget. It is the core, over 50% of what we're doing here. And so, for us to purport, sorry, I'll use a better word, for us to want to believe that this is about conservation and postpone. Conservation is important, postpone is important, all these things. The ask before us to vote on eminent domain as concerns to land for a school. Am I the only one who sees this? Am I the only one who sits at home and has to think, how do I think about the school and then think about eminent domain? Am I the only one who has to do that? Or have you guys found a way? Because teach me how to do this job without thinking about schools. Teach me, because I don't know. You know what I think? I think we're all thinking about schools. I know, I'm going to tell you. I'm going to tell you as much as you're happy to hear it. And I think we got to own up to the fact that it's no one's fault that we're stacked here like decks of cards against each other. It's no one's fault that we're here, but guess what? We got to make a decision for the good of our town. And the good of our town is not my personal belief, it's not your personal belief, it's what's the best of our town. Every day we don't buy land that's available to us, that land goes up in value. Increased cost. Every day we delay on building, those building costs go up in value. Increased cost. We will have to build a school eventually. Increased cost. We can kick the can 5 years, we don't need a school, or we can decide, you know what, let's look at this and everything economically. I happen to work in health economics. Tells us that this is the most financially advantageous decision. And so I challenge you, Warrant Committee, to do your freaking job and look at this from a fiscally responsible way. I apologize for my tone.
Okay, okay.
I just don't know what we're doing here at 9:45 if we're not thinking about the money. Someone help me. Help me understand it.
I think you got him on a draw, partner. JJ.
Who's going?
I don't know who, I'll go. So I hope then you'll vote for the Discovery School, because that's property that's available
So
to the town.
please direct to the chair.
Oh, Chair.
Let's watch out.
Yeah. No, like, I hope that we
Yep.
will, because this is for the town, and we didn't vote for the Hoosick, and that could have been for a preschool. So we have property that will eventually come up that I hope that everybody will agree with, if that's what's, so that we can, in the interim, use those spaces for preschools. But I appreciate your comments and your passion. But I still think that we're only looking at it from one, that this is it, and this is like, either you believe in the schools and only going down this road of eminent domain and this property at this time, and I think that there's other options out there and that we need to work together as a group to do. And that's just it doesn't mean I don't care about the kids, and I don't, because that's what I've been told by people in the community, but I do want a school. I just don't think that we have, Guile is gonna be overpopulated. Wells talked about the traffic around Canton. I think there's some ecological with Pine Brook and things that we really need to take into factor. So, I mean, this is for me, and then taking it by eminent domain. We have a moral responsibility to the town. And so as a person on the committee, it's good to have these conversations, but I think that there's other spaces available and other opportunities, and I'm not sure I'm fully supporting that being the space.
I just had a clarifying, I don't know if it would be a comment or a question, but with Discovery, the vote is, the vote is to support the sale of Kidder. It is currently a school, so the only way, I mean, if it somehow didn't get sold and Discovery was no longer there, we would lose a school. So I just want to make sure, like, it is a current school. There is a shortage of school spaces, so I want to make it clear that the only change in school space would be if Discovery was no longer there, we would lose spots for students in town. So I just, because that had just come up, wanted to raise that.
Kristen?
Can we let Kristen go?
Oh, she just.
All right, JJ.
Yeah, I wanted to say, Steve, I'm so sorry for what happened to you, because that has happened to me as well, and it's very upsetting. It wasn't today, but in the past, my family has been attacked, and I think as volunteers, it's unacceptable. But I don't agree with eminent domain as a precedent, and I just won't change my view on that. And that's just all I wanted to say.
Thank you, Kristen. JJ.
So this is my second year on the Warrant Committee, and I have to say, we're rehashing a lot of the conversation from last year.
Imagine that.
So let's, at this point,
Exactly.
let's
So
move it to
I'm-
comments to
yeah,
1
I'm-
minute
I'm
or
gonna-
less.
Oh, really? 1 minute?
I think you're right. I think that,
Okay, I'll talk fast. I can talk
there you go.
fast. So, I have to admit, people were like, there's gonna be land, it's gonna come up. Why are we doing this now? And so, I thought they were not right, because the school board committee at the time had done 3 years of work, and no land had come up. And I was like, it has to be done now, because we are at capacity. But I was wrong. Fontbonne came up, a miracle.
Mm-hmm.
And didn't come through. A shame. But what I was right about was we were at capacity then, and now our kids are in closets. They're in lounges. They're in libraries with partitions. And the question we have here is, Mr. O'Rourke said, if we do not build a school, it's going to be 10 years. I personally believe him, because I know, and I only have a minute, so I can't give you my prepared remarks about the Randolph Avenue site. But continually, I just heard today about Discovery School. I've never even heard of it, about this place. And maybe it is, maybe it's real, but now it's not real. I have no idea. Always a new option. But Steve, you were talking just now about, I don't know, you're in construction. It's going to be 10 years. Is that the time frame? Is it 10 years?
No, I think, well, Sean can, or Mr. O'Rourke can, with the
if-
chair's permission, can I
Yeah.
answer his question or no? No,
But just real quick, let me just clarify the question. If we don't go through with a building now, a school building now, is it 10 years?
it's gonna be a long time, because there's capacity, there's resource capacity for materials, cost of money is compounding, it's going up through the roof, right? So he's correct in his assumptions when he's talking about that.
And the cost would exponentially grow?
Just look at building before COVID and looking at it, putting an addition now at your house, what the cost would be. Look at the cost of money now, if you look at 30-year notes on a house. I mean, it's going through the roof, but I think it would be challenging, and I do think it will take a long time, because they've got to go on, they've got to do site excavation, they've got to clear the site, they got to go through all the engineering studies, go through traffic studies, and then come back through and start building. And that's assuming that they don't have any other people standing in front of them in their progress. And then once they get through that, there's construction, then there's weather, there's seasonality that goes in front of that too. So their work is cut out for them, there's no doubt about it.
Okay, so,
To answer your question, it's a long time. It could take over 5 years.
look, the chair has talked about, where the article in front of us is eminent domain, but everyone keeps talking about schools. So, I don't know. I mean, the point is, if hopefully town meeting votes for a school, then I think this is fiscally sound.
But that's
to do it in
not what this
manner.
says. This says for the town, this says that our recommendation, if we approve this, says we recommend to the town that they take by eminent domain the parcels that are
So
identified in
these
the
are
land
separate.
swap.
They're not linked. That's what you're saying.
What I'm saying is that the scheme here is that they set up a land swap, okay, where the town is going to give some land to conservation land, and what they're going to do is take conservation land to help build the school. The land swap article that was a no recommendation by 7-6 says we don't want to do that swap. This article is an eminent domain article that says when you do the swap, we want you to use eminent domain. The concern that we had last night was following confusion with regards to that pond that shall not be named. Okay? We voted to do eminent domain. So what we did is we voted not to authorize the land swap, but to do the land swap. That was the disconnect. We were very close to making a no recommendation, which is rarely done. But that way, and we might disagree on this, is that there was some articulation that there might be people who would be in favor of eminent domain to do this, that it would be right to do so. However, because to vote yes to that article triggers the taking of the land by eminent domain, which would be inconsistent with our prior decision, we chose kind of to table that and then to be ready to go to town meeting with a recommendation then. Should the people of the town choose to go forward, then I think, then one way of looking at it, then we don't go in like stained by having been against it. So this is kind of like one of those things where people, like what was that great line? I was for it before I was against it. You know, like somebody would be forced to be in a position where they have to vote now, no, not to do this, but might support it later. Okay, I'm breaking my 1-minute rule, but that's to try to clear that up. Is that what this says is take it. That's why they call it a taking. Okay? And so what we're saying is if we do the land swap, we want to take it. 4 reasons. Just to clear that up. And that was one of the reasons why I think we liked the no recommendation. Amanda.
So my concern is that the consensus by which we said no recommendation, and I think this is what you referred to earlier, and Member O'Hene disagreed with, was that the consensus was people would say, oh, if that, then yes, we'll do that. But what I'm hearing right now is there are a number of people who are saying, I am just against eminent domain. So that is not a foregone conclusion if we get there. And so if we're going to have this discussion and have an agreement around it, I feel like now's the time to do it, because this is where the discussion is. Because we're making that recommendation with the knowledge of the previous article. So, and unfortunately, that's the situation we're in because of the way that these 2 articles are linked. But we kind of put ourselves there. I mean, either way, like either decision, we would have to, either vote, you have to make this vote. And so I don't think we're doing our job if we pass it, and I think we're going to wind up in an hour-and-a-half conversation in the middle of town meeting if we have to come to that conclusion then. So I feel like this is something we'd have to vote on tonight. That's my opinion.
Steve.
Yeah, so I think what we did yesterday was the right thing, is have no recommendation, and in the comment section, our comment section, we could put in there, we could vote for it, or, you know, what we think as a group here, but I don't think it makes sense for us to vote on this if the other one fails. I mean, what's the purpose?
And I just want to back that, if it's okay. The attorney, Freytag, said that they go hand in hand, so that was kind of why, more importantly, that I do want to say that I think it's important to see how the town votes for the article first, because they do go hand in hand.
Mr. Chair, just to clarify what the attorney said. The attorney said our vote of a no, a vote of a no comment was a precedent that the attorney had never seen before. That's what the attorney said. The attorney was not in support.
Said he.
That's what you've said.
He
what
said that
Member
it goes
Jackson
hand in
said
hand.
is a
I just said that.
mischaracterization. The attorney
Oh.
said
I didn't
what we were doing
mischaracterize, so
had
please
never
don't imply that I did.
been
Please don't-
precedented.
Right, hold on. You got it out. You got it out.
Yeah.
There was a hand up over here somewhere. Jay.
Yes. So I would like to directly address the eminent domain. The words eminent domain are scary words. Every other time in my life, I've heard the words eminent domain. Whoops, let me turn on my microphone. Every other time in my life, I've heard the words eminent domain. It was the government taking a little old lady's house. That's not what this is. This eminent domain is addressing a legal construct that a lawyer says, you know, we're going to sue you to create this legal construct of a public trust. This is a legal tool for a legal solution to a legal construct. It is not kicking a little old lady out of her house. However, what's going to happen at town meeting? In town meeting, there's a structured town meeting, and we are the grown-ups in the room at town meeting. You've got 280 town meeting members who aren't as involved in the issues as we are. They're not going to dig into this as deeply. Those 280 members are going to look at the words eminent domain, and they're going to be scared, just like I was scared when I first saw them. They're going to be looking to the grown-ups in the room to say, no, it's a legal tool, it's a legal fiction, it's not taking land from an old lady. We need to tell them not to be afraid. Because if town meeting is, first of all, if the first article fails, all of this is moot. If the first article fails, town meeting will not pass this. That's not a fear. But if town meeting does pass the first article, but then they're afraid and they don't pass this, that's when we have years of lawsuits. That's when we have a delayed school because lawsuit after lawsuit. That's exactly what the town council said. You don't do this, you have years of lawsuits. You do this, you have 90 days of lawsuits. So I would say I would like to vote yes tonight, but.
Is that a hand?
Yeah, I think going to that point and the very valid concern of if we end up in a place where this one matters and we need to, again, that scary concept of eminent domain. Eminent domain, we're not usually thinking of taking from ourselves. And I do worry a little bit about stopping town meeting when we could have that discussion here and now. I think that's something that's important. I think the other piece, and I know this is going back a little bit because I've heard a lot of comments about good faith and what we think of others and just mentions of volunteer work and how, I mean, we are here. It is late, getting late. We're all putting time in here. We are all working hard. And so are all of the other appointed and elected committees. I mean, sometimes I look at other schedules and they are even far more demanding than ours. And I think that, you know, we're all volunteering. So I do, like sometimes when I hear demands for apologies and thoughts about assuming maybe not good faith from other committees, I think, and Mr. Chair, I apologize if this is opening a can of worms, but you know, we've had moments where we haven't had some of our things in order. Like when we did not have a clerk, thank goodness, Karen, when you joined us. I don't know what we would do without you. We were late on our minutes. And so I think it's really important that we have a really high bar before we are not assuming good faith of others. Because my experience is if I'm not assuming good faith of others, unless I have really good reason not to, that favor will be returned. And there have been moments where we have taken time, and I don't think any of us were trying to do that intentionally. We're volunteering, like this time takes up probably all the time we have to spare. So it was not through bad faith, but I think we just need to remember that everyone else is volunteering too. So I just, I try to think in terms of what I can control and what we can control. And I think we can all control how we think of, what others are doing and the time they're investing, and appreciating and respecting that as well. And I think this is something where people have strong feelings, and we need to remember that.
Well said.
Thank you.
Does anyone else have anything to say?
I just have one more comment.
Allison.
The eminent domain for conservation land has never, they cited one example about conservation taking land by eminent domain. So I think it's a little bit different of a situation. That's a little bit, so I remember that point being made on Monday as a concern for eminent domain. So I just got to bring that point out, is that in this, we haven't done it. So it's a little bit more of a different slope of taking. So I think it's important to be very cautious of and see where the town goes with no recommendation.
Amanda first. And I'm going to, at this point, let's go to a hard 1-minute rule.
Going to be very brief. I understand the comments about eminent domain. I just want to make sure that we're keeping in mind we are taking land from us and giving it to us. We're taking land from either it's not even from a, I just think that that's an important thing to keep in mind as we're looking at this. It's not taking land from anybody else but us. We're changing the type of conservation land that it is, as opposed to taking it from anyone else. And it's 2.1 acres.
JJ.
To speak to Jay's point, this eminent domain article will not, eminent domain article will not be voted on or even have a chance of passing unless the town meeting approves the first land swap. So what I would like, right? No?
What you're saying is what can't happen at town meeting is potentially what's happening right now.
No.
Is
no.
that they could, oh, you don't think they could?
I'm sorry,
They could vote against the land swap, but then go in there and backdoor it? No, I hold that. I should not have said that. I am going to apologize for that
Let's write that
remark.
down.
I should not have said that, used that phrase. Is that the thing that you said that could not happen at town meeting is exactly what's happening now, which is exactly what happened at our last meeting that caused us to do a motion to reconsider that brought us back to the no recommendation. The effect of this, a different way of reading this, is to see if the town will swap out the conservation land by way of eminent domain.
So can I talk?
Sorry, I just want to clear that up. I mean, like I've said before, I want us to focus on what we're doing here. This is asking us to use the power of eminent domain to affect the land swap. There you go. JJ, you are recognized.
So just to speak to what you just said, the power of eminent domain to effect the land swap.
Yeah.
The land swap has to happen. It has to
It
happen.
doesn't. This would authorize then, you can use eminent domain to do the land swap.
Yeah, but the land swap has to happen. If they don't pass the land swap, this is not going to happen.
No. This would author, look,
But you
read
just
it.
said the sentence.
What?
You said, use eminent domain to effect the land swap.
It says, I'll read it.
That's what you just said.
To see if the town will vote to authorize the select board to acquire for school purposes by taking by eminent domain. If we recommend to the town that they do this, we then say, our recommendation to the town is that we take this land by eminent domain.
Okay.
But you
it
could
has
take.
nothing to do with the land swap then.
Well, it does, because what it does is it lays out the quid pro quo, where it says, and give up. So what this really is instead of saying nothing and saying you can acquire it, is part of what we talked about was there were concerns with regards to a possible lawsuit that eminent domain could put the town in a better legal position if there was a challenge. So what they decided to do is they said, if we're going to do the land swap, we need to have the power of eminent domain to effect it. So the purpose of this is to say, if you want to do the land swap, then you have the power to do eminent domain. By not having the power of eminent domain and having the Conservation Commission give us the land somehow, the concern being that they might not really have the power to do that in an effective legal way, and we needed the power of eminent domain to do it. So that was the problem, is that, and that was the beauty, not the beauty, but that was one of the reasons I believe that there was consensus behind no recommendation, is that we might agree with the town, that we might agree with the select board that eminent domain should be used if we want to put the town in the best legal position should the town go forward, and give them that power. But the concern is that if we give them the power now, we give them the power now.
JJ never
JJ.
finished.
So the reason why I voted no recommendation is because Pope's Ponds was in there, and I didn't want to vote against Pope's Ponds being put into conservation.
See?
That's the reason why I voted no recommendation, but now
Get 'em
that
out.
it's
Get 'em out
not,
of here.
That's fine.
you know, like, oh, I shouldn't be saying Pope's Ponds.
I just want to, listen, it's after 10.
But can I'm just confused, but can I just make my original point? Because,
No, hold on. If there's look, if you're confused about something, we need to clear this up.
Okay.
So what's the confusion?
Honestly, you talked for longer than a minute.
Yes. That should not be confusing.
But
Yep.
everything you said, I thought agreed with my assessment. I thought it was like talking about the land swap, and the land swap has to happen for the eminent. I don't know. It's just, Emily, you.
I was going to say, I share, and I'll direct this to you, but I share that opinion of, I mean, we often see articles stacked in a very intentional way because the first one impacts everything that follows. And so I would expect, and I think what usually is, and maybe I'm wrong, because it was interesting and different having town meeting by Zoom, and being on Zoom on Monday, I realized like it is a different experience than being in the room. But when there's a second article, if that kind of hinges on the first, typically I thought it was advised like that one be withdrawn. So the only way we end at this being truly considered is if the first one passes, because we don't control what happens. We make recommendations, and yes, we are supposed to be like this independent body that is looking at things carefully, but we don't control the outcome. So town meeting controls the outcome of the article, and then this one only is, I just can't imagine a circumstance where the first one fails and this one proceeds. And so I do think like if we were to vote on this, we could put in the comment that it's kind of like only if the first one passes and it proceeds to this is what we think. And like, I mean, it is a hypothetical where there's only kind of, I think, one hypothetical that if that passes, then this is what we think.
Go ahead, John.
Can I, so if the first one doesn't pass, the land is still conservation. It's still Article 97 land. Nothing's getting built on it. No school's getting built on it if the first one doesn't pass.
Yeah, that's true.
So that, I think, solves that concern.
Yeah, that's what.
But more to, I'm thinking of the practical effect of where, you know, Mr. Chair, you said you think, I don't know if I agree with your conclusion, but you think a lot of us might say yes to eminent domain at town meeting if they approve the land swap. Let's play this out in our head. When are they more likely to take our advice? When it comes in the mail 3 weeks ahead of time and they say, oh, well, they said they didn't like this, but here's the nuance of why the eminent domain is positive. Or the other hypothetical is we're at town meeting. The first article has to pass by 2/3. So 2/3 of town meeting members, 280 of them, 2/3 of those vote against the warrant committee on arguably the most important issue of the night. Do you think the next thing they will think is, boy, I wonder what the warrant committee thinks about the next issue? I don't. I'll just say I don't. So if we are in that situation, I hope we don't discuss it for more than 5 minutes, because that's what it'll be worth. But if we give them our opinion ahead of time, at least they might listen to us.
Let's go, Tom.
I'll be very quick. Jay, just as to your last comment, I think that being in town meeting for a while, like I have, like you, like, it's, that discussion's gonna be, like, buckle up. No matter what the actual issue is, like, that's gonna take a considerable amount of time. And I think they are, but as what the chair said, like, what, the other, Monday night, that's what I was thinking. I was just thinking, like, it's condition precedent, like, we can address these one at a time, and it might not be the best way, and we can structure the comment in a way to kind of maybe show our cards, or not, but we could definitely, with the chair's permission, like, describe, you know, our rationale behind one, and now two, then we'll consider it, as the chair said, we'll be ready to go as best we can. So that was kind of like my thinking on Monday, and I was just going off because I wasn't certain until I heard the chair speak that was an accurate reflection of what we did the other night. So that's it. So that wasn't helpful.
All right, it was O'Hanny.
I'll be brief.
I want to take the opportunity to apologize to each of you. My mother taught me better than that. And I do sincerely apologize, and I hope you'll still come to my Warrant Committee branch at my house in Cambridge. I know some of you are not going to forgive me, but I really do apologize. I question your ability to do your job. I question your desire to do the job, and that's not correct. My frustration is born out of simply the fact that we know that every day we delay this is more cost. And on every other issue, we voted on any other issue, not all these things, but on this one, for some reason, the fiscal thing goes out the door, and we just revert. That's my frustration. I think a member Caldwell made a good point, and our chair has been trying to make this point all night. We have to presume that we're sitting in that room. The vote today is as if it has been voted yes, and now we have to act on that. That's the eminent domain question. Mr. Chair keeps saying let's focus on eminent, let's pretend we're in that place, we have to go on the eminent domain. Mr. Chair says, at that moment, we'll all do the right thing. I think what we're supposed to do as a Warrant Committee is actually take that vote here and today and document what we do, so that when we go, we have this discussion. By then, there'll be numerous amendments, the select board will bring it 3 more times, I'm sure we'll have to vote on some other ticky-tack thing. But the job today, say, let's present we're in that room, as opposed to doing this fight for 2 hours, with the whole town watching, and just make that pretext, and make a vote, and go home and sleep.
So what I'd like to say is, we have to imagine that the land swap has happened, and that we are voting on this, and this swap is happening. And do we want the town to be mired in years of litigation? And the school that they just voted for is not going to be built for years, if ever? Or do we want to save time and money and recommend this article? So you can vote no on the first article and easily vote yes on this article, in my opinion.
Mr. Chair, if I may, that was part of my confusion the other night, was voting no on the first one and then voting yes on this one, right? So, I mean, obviously the optics of that, personally looking at this, for me, I'm trying to think, and I appreciate your comments where we're actually taking this land from ourselves. We're not taking it from, you know, a family. We're taking it's town land. So, and this isn't possible, obviously, but de-risking this, you know, taking out the swap language, we're looking at just that parcel at Guile now, right? Does it have to be all this swap to confuse? But then, as I play this out in my head, I do think that the eminent domain protects the town. It protects us short, long term. It protects us from lawsuit. It protects us from not having a school built, right? And then losing generations of kids who are in classrooms or, you know, that are just slammed. And I appreciate my fellow members' comments this evening. It's been very helpful for me.
Okay.
Are we moving towards a motion?
I think we are. The let me talk about that a little bit. Is there any request for further discussion? Hearing none, we're going to move on sort of to vote time. The one thing I would ask is that if somebody's considering a vote of no recommendation, we do that one first. Okay, because then if there is a no recommendation, there's no recommendation. If there is a recommendation, then we move to what the recommendation might be. Then at that time, we might want to have discussion, so that there might be no recommendation for reasons. And then if we're going to go to the vote, it sounds to me like there is some, maybe a consensus, I'm not saying there's one, but we would talk about that, is that it sounds to me like from the discussion that we've had here is that the vote with regards to eminent domain would be contingent upon a yes vote. And that we would want our recommendation to the town to be clear on that. So it's good to see the heads like, okay, this is not a vote, but I'm just trying to get a sense of and offer some direction on how to proceed here. Okay, so it goes a little like this, is that if somebody's considering doing a vote of no recommendation, we do that first, because a vote for a recommendation just makes that not, a vote yes or in favor. That's going to either go yes or no. Then no recommendation would not be a possibility. Okay.
Can I propose, and I emailed you about this yesterday or today, that if there are sort of three options in front of us, yes, no, no recommendation, and let's say someone makes a motion, let's vote yes, and that fails. I think we could still say, well, then what are we doing? I mean, you're the chair, but you're the chair.
So I'm gonna Jesus take the wheel, right? I'm throwing this out there. This is my sort of direction to the committee at this point. Just a suggestion, that's fine, right? Hammer this out. Is there a motion from the floor, committee? Is there a motion from the committee?
I move that we accept the proposed article as we received it from the select board today at approximately 3 p.m.
I have a question.
Against what you
Okay.
With regards to our recommendation, let's talk about the recommendation. Are you proposing that we have...
Oh, hold on. Ooh.
Were you proposing that we have language in that says that it's contingent upon the passage of the prior article with regards to the land swap?
You read my mind, because I didn't say it, but you're so correct. So, what I meant to say was, recommended that if the town approves Article blank...
Can you give us the number, please?
Oh, you...
Have that?
Not on that, but it's probably in the warrant.
And if the land swap would pass this.
Okay,
Clarify the
32.
language.
The first one is 32.
Okay. I'm sorry, it's 32.
The first one is 32. So, recommend that the town vote... Recommend that if the town approves Article 32, that the town vote, and then the above language.
Okay.
To authorize.
That would authorize the select
To
board
authorize the select board to acquire for school purposes, yada, yada,
et
yada.
cetera, et cetera. Okay.
So there was a motion.
There is a...
Oh, sorry, I'm just trying to write it down. and
So
thinking
there
out loud.
is... Jay has made a motion to the committee that if the town approves Article 32, that the town would vote to authorize the select board to acquire for school purposes, et cetera. Is there a second? Amanda had her hand up first. Amanda is a second. Is there any discussion that we would like to have? Under penalty of law. But seriously, is there any request for further discussion on this matter having been deliberated at length. I'll ask one last time.
Clarification question,
Yes.
Mr. Chair. So yes vote would pass the eminent domain as providing that Article 32 passes by 2/3 vote in town. Is that accurate?
That is accurate.
Okay.
So it would be contingent upon,
And would you describe all the voting options, please?
yes, the option on this vote is to vote in favor of the proposed recommendation, that being, so it'd be yes, a yes would vote to recommend to the town this language. If the town approves Article 32, that town vote to take eminent domain. So a yes vote to this would be recommending to the town that they use eminent domain to take the land should they vote in favor of the land swap. Is there any question about that? I'll ask one more time. Is there any more question about that? Having then a vote, that was motion that was seconded, I would ask Madam Secretary to please conduct a roll call vote.
All right. O'Henny.
Yes.
JJ.
Yes.
Steve Rhines.
Yes.
Kristen.
No.
Tom.
No.
Steve Geister.
No.
Lori.
No.
Allison.
No.
Jareem.
Yes.
Amanda.
Yes.
Judy.
No.
Jay.
Yes.
And I'm a yes. And I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 yeses, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 noes. So if my math is right, which Karen, please.
Yeah, I have the same, and
So-
Dave would be an abstention.
I am an
Yes.
abstention.
So the yeses have it.
So by my tally as well, the yeas having presented 7 votes, the nays having presented 6, the motion before the warrant committee tonight is carried by the yeas, and it shall be the recommendation of the warrant committee to the town that should the town vote to authorize the select board to go forward with the land swap, then at that time, our recommendation to them would be that they do so by eminent domain. So it shall be written, so it shall be done. Thank you, everyone, for this conversation. Thanks, everyone, for their participate in this public hearing. Jay?
May I say something?
Yeah.
Passions are running high. I would implore everyone in the town, if you are passionate about something in town, there is an election the last week of April. Please constructively devote your passion.
We
to that
can't lobby. We
Oh,
actually.
I'm sorry. I'm not. Oh, I'm sorry. I wasn't trying to lobby. I was trying to say get involved.
Yep.
So I'm sorry.
We can't campaign in a public
I sure put
building,
my foot in my
so-
mouth.
All right,
Yeah.
order. Order.
Okay. I'm sorry.
That's okay, order. That concludes that agenda. I think we've done enough for tonight. Is there a motion? Is there any opposition to that motion to adjourn? We are adjourned. Steve, let's talk.